The sky above the ruby-strewn ford of the Trident was the color of steel left too long in winter rain, yet the rain itself had ceased hours earlier, leaving only a slick sheen across fields where men had died in thousands. Clotted mud tugged at boots and hooves alike. The smell of trampled reeds and spilt blood drifted on faint, fitful gusts. Long after victory horns fell silent, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen remained astride his pale gray mount beside the riverbank, gazing at the corpse of Robert Baratheon as if willing the rebel lord to breathe again and finish the song they had started. Ser Barristan Selmy, wounded but unbowed, lingered a few paces behind, sword tip planted in the earth. "Your Grace," he murmured at last, the honorific slipping out despite the crown still resting on Mad King Aerys's brow far away in King's Landing. Rhaegar turned with slow solemnity. The dragon's glass rubies that armored the Prince of Dragonstone's breastplate were cracked and darkened, yet most still clung to the beaten silver scales. Only 3 lay scattered in the mud, dull red seeds awaiting some grimmer harvest. "No songs will rise from this field," he said. "Only widows' laments." Barristan's keen eyes drifted to the standard of the crowned stag half-submerged in river foam. Better laments than the silence the usurper promised. At that Rhaegar dismounted, knees buckling before he steadied himself. He knelt over Robert's sprawled form. The hammer that had shattered the prince's breastplate lay at the dead man's side, a brutal bloom of steel petals. Lifting one mailed hand, Rhaegar closed Robert's eyes. "I had imagined our duel 100 ways," he whispered. "Not once did I think I would mourn you." Gray ghosts of dawn were bleeding into the east by the time heralds carried tidings across both camps. Robert fallen, Stormlords broken, Stannis retreating south with what men remained. Doubt seeped through rebel ranks like river water through sieve cloth. Without their towering champion, they were a body robbed of heart. Some fled outright, others knelt. Rhaegar, learning of the Baratheon host's dissolution, spoke a single order. "Send riders with terms. Prisoners will be treated honorably. The war is at an end." Yet ending wars and winning peace were separate arts. He marched slowly through rows of surrendered tents, answering stiff bows with grave nods, pausing to speak comfort to the wounded whether dragon or stag. His words were gentle, but those who stood near glimpsed a storm behind his violet eyes, lightning chained but restless. When the sun broke free of low clouds, a raven arrived bearing stark black wax. Its seal, a lone direwolf howling. The master of ravens found Rhaegar outside the healer's pavilion and pressed the message into his gauntlet. Lord Eddard Stark of Winterfell begs audience. The parchment declared in terse northern script that he may treat of prisoners and the fate of his sister Lyanna. Some instinct older than duty tightened Rhaegar's throat. He dismissed the Ravenkeeper with thanks and stared northward where distant ridges blurred against clouds. "Lyanna," he murmured, tasting the name like sweet snowmelt. He had stolen her from her father's hall. Or had she fled, seeking songs the north denied her? Either way, wolf and dragon were bound now by threads of fire and frost, love and lies, blood and blades unsheathed. He summoned Ser Arthur Dayne and Ser Oswell went, those Kingsguard still able to ride, and gave swift instructions. Escort Lord Stark with every honor. Shed no blood save in defense. The White Bull, Lord Commander Gerald Hightower, he ordered south, quietly, to King's Landing, bearing a sealed letter whose wax he impressed with a great ruby from his breastplate. That night, campfires dotted the valley like stranded stars. Rhaegar walked alone among them, hood up, silver blonde hair bound back, a prince disguised as any weary veteran. He knelt beside a small fire where 2 men in torn Baratheon cloaks roasted crowmeat. They tensed, hands drifting toward knives, but he merely asked for a share and gave them wine in return. They spoke of home, one of the Rainwood, one of Stonehelm, telling Rhaegar of sisters yet unmarried, fields unpluffed, fathers gone pale with worry. They did not know their guest, and he did not enlighten them. When at last he rose, one muttered, "7 keep you, stranger." "The 7, Rhaegar said, voice soft but carrying. "Keep those who keep faith." He left them then, cloak brushing ash-laden grass. Only when he had gone did the younger sellsword wonder aloud why tears gleamed on the stranger's cheeks like dew. Lord Eddard Stark arrived 3 days later, escorted by 600 weary Northmen and a gaunt retinue of river lords. The valley had begun to green again. Scavenging crows moved on, leaving ragged standards flapping over burial trenches. Ned dismounted before the prince's crimson pavilion, face grave as sculpted ice. "You asked for parley," Rhaegar greeted, stepping forward. He wore simple leather over a black wool tunic, rubies absent. A silver circlet ringed his brow, its three-headed dragon wrought so fine it seemed alive when torchlight struck. "I asked for truth," Ned replied, and his gray eyes cut deeper than ice ever had. Behind him, bannermen shifted. Howland Reed slight as a reedstalk, Lord John Connington gaunt from captivity, Ser Brynden Tully grim yet measured. "Truth," Rhaegar echoed, "has many edges. Some wound the teller." He gestured to the pavilion. "Will you share wine, my lord?" Ned's jaw tightened. "Lyanna first." At that, the prince bowed his head. "She is safe." He raised a hand for stalling protest. "Not here, no. I placed her where no sword could reach, save mine if doom compelled." A muscle twitched in Ned's cheek. Fear, hope, fury. Rhaegar motioned for space, and shields parted around a litter borne by Dornishmen bearing the sun and spear. Within lay Ser Ashera Dane, pale but serene, her dark eyes bright with unshed tears. She carried a swaddled infant with skin the color of dawnlight on milk. "Your sister's child," Rhaegar said softly. "A son she named Aemon after the Dragon Knight. Lyanna herself waits at the Tower of Joy. She asked that her labor remain hidden until war's noise died." Silence gathered. Even banners seemed to still. Ned Stark svajed. "You wed her. By Heart's Tree and Seven-Pointed Star," Rhaegar answered. "Her honor is mine now, as mine hers." The North remembered Brandon Stark strangled in King's Landing. Rickard burned alive. Ned's breath frosted, although the air was gentle. Yet, when he looked upon the sleeping babe, tension bled from his shoulders. "Then she must see peace," he murmured. "Peace," Rhaegar repeated. He spread his hands. "Help me forge it. Ride with me to King's Landing. Stand beside me when I lay down my father's crown and don my own. Be my hand, Eddard Stark, wolf to balance dragon." A hush swept the assemblage. Even wind paused to listen. Ned's bannermen looked to him, eyes wide. "Your father yet rules," Ned reminded, voice low. "My father rules only his terrors," Rhaegar said. "Already Lord Commander Hightower rides to secure the city. Varys and Pycelle swore loyalty to survival. They will bend. As for the Kingsguard at the Red Keep, Ser Jaime waits." Ned's mouth tightened at mention of the Lion of Lannister. Rumors whispered of Tywin's hosts massing at the gates. But Rhaegar pressed on. "I ask you, Ned, not for friendship undeserved, but for realm and reason. Robert's death leaves a void. I would fill it with justice, not tyranny. North and South together else remain at dagger's thrust." Something softer flickered in Ned's gaze. A memory of boyhood laughter with Benjen beneath Winterfell's towers. Of Lyanna dancing around the weirwood, flowers in her hair. Slowly he bowed his head. "I will ride to King's Landing," he said, "and I will hear what rule you offer the realm." Rhaegar extended a gloved hand. After a heartbeat, Ned took it. From that clasp, a kingdom's fate unfurled like parchment set to flame. The march south was deliberate, each mile measured by diplomatic care. Rhaegar kept loyal Stormlords and Riverlords intermingled with Northmen, dissolving old battle lines before they could fester into new grudges. Evening councils convened beneath canvas. Stark and Targaryen, Reed and Martell, Tully and Dane, each voice heard in turn. Over campfires Ned learned that Rhaegar intended to convene a great council to confirm his accession, an echo of the old King Jaehaerys' wisdom. "Let the lords judge me," the prince said. "If they deem me unfit, I will take the black with honor." It was bold. It was madness. It was perhaps the only path through the maze of treacheries curling round the Iron Throne. Ned found himself grudgingly admiring that courage. Yet he held caution close, like a wolf's hide in winter storm. One mist-shrouded dawn, the column paused near the ruins of Summerhall. Cracked marble pillars jutted like broken fingers from a field of wildflowers. Rhaegar wandered alone among them. Ned followed at a distance until the prince knelt beside a charred stone foundation. "My birthplace," Rhaegar murmured when he sensed Ned's approach, though the spot held no marker. "Here my grandfather sought to hatch dragons with wildfire. Instead, he burned a house and its dreams." Ned stepped nearer, boots crushing lilac blooms. "Dreams can rise anew from ashes." Rhaegar smiled, sad, wistful. "Can they?" He stroked a burnt stone's pitted surface. "I studied prophecy too long. Forgot that prophecy cares nothing for the living." He rose, turning face to gray sun. "So I choose the living." Ned glanced at the broken bones of palace walls. "Then choose also the realm that must live after us. Prophecy or peace, you cannot serve both." The prince's smile faded, but he inclined his head in agreement. They stood there in shared silence until horns recalled them to duty. Far ahead, King's Landing simmered. Ser Gerald Hightower arrived first beneath a flag of truce, white bull majestic despite the dust of hard riding. He brought news. Aerys had raged upon hearing Robert's death, naming Rhaegar traitor, ordering wildfire caches primed, vowing to purify the city in dragonflame. Yet Jaime Lannister had intervened. Blade bared not against rebels but against the Hand, Lord Rossart, and the pyromancers who gathered under each city gate. Rumors claimed Aerys locked himself in the throne room, refusing food, ranting at ghosts behind its massive doors. Tywin Lannister's army encamped outside the city, banners golden in the afternoon glare. No assault came, none was required. Hunger and fear gnawed the populace. Small folk whispered that lions would soon rule. When Rhaegar's host reached the King's Road 2 leagues north of the Gate of the Gods, trumpets of the Rock sounded. A solitary rider approached. Ser Tywin himself, clad in gilded plate. Rhaegar met him between lines of tense soldiers. The two great men regarded each other. One young yet haunted, the other grizzled and unreadable. "I come to pledge the might of Casterly Rock," Tywin announced, voice carrying, "and to counsel swift resolve." Rhaegar's jaw tightened. "Your counsel burns too easily." A breath of icy disdain passed over Tywin's pale eyes. "A sword that hesitates rusts." Ned, watching beside the prince, felt old distrust tighten his gut. Yet Rhaegar spoke coolly. "You will stand aside until my father's fate is sealed by lawful decree." "Law is written by victors," Tywin observed, but he bowed. So the lions stood leashed for now. Within King's Landing, tensions coiled like serpents. Jaime Lannister, still in white cloak stained by soot, unlocked the doors of the Red Keep for his prince. Inside, corridors smelled of cold ash and sharper things. Rhaegar strode the torchlit halls toward the throne room. Ned walked near, left hand resting upon the pommel of ice. Tywin followed at a measured distance, flanked by red-cloaked guards. They found King Aerys seated upon the Iron Throne, robes filthy, beard tangled, eyes wild. "Traitor!" he shrieked when Rhaegar entered. "Usurper! I am the dragon. You are but ash." He clawed the throne's arm, cutting flesh upon its jagged steel. Blood streaked down rusted mail. He laughed at the sight. Rhaegar halted 5 steps from the dais. "Father," he said softly, "your reign is done." "Done?" Biddle flew. "Done when fire burns water, when night devours sun. Never." Barristan Selmy stepped forward, voice thick with sorrow. "Sire, the realm bleeds. Let it heal." Aerys's gaze darted to Selmy, then Ned, then Tywin. He saw betrayal in every face, even his own reflection in a dulled blade. Whispers claimed he had not slept in days, that he drank wildfire potions to birth dragons in his bowels. Truth or madness mattered little. Both stank alike. Rhaegar knelt. Gasps echoed. "Father, grant me the crown, and I will grant you peace. You may live out your days at Dragonstone amid the sea's lullaby. No blade will threaten you." Silence stretched. Ares leaned forward, hair a sweaty snarl. "Kneel lower, boy, so I may spit upon you." Rhaegar bowed lower still. The court held its breath. Then the king raised his voice to a hoarse bellow. "Burn them all!" From alcoves above, 3 gaunt pyromancers sprang brandishing torches. But Jaime Lannister had anticipated treachery. His sword was out before fire touched oil. He cut 2 men down while Selmy disarmed a 3rd. Ares shrieked, scrabbling for a hidden dagger. Thin, Valyrian sharp. Jaime stepped onto the throne's dais. For an instant everything froze. The young lion staring at his prince, sword dripping green fire. The prince kneeling, the mad king snarling. Rhaegar's eyes flicked to Jaime's blade, then to his father's dagger. Understanding passed like silent stormlight. Jaime struck. 1 precise thrust. Ares' scream ended in wet gurgle. Blood steamed on black iron. Drops hissed as they touched a torch's ember. The hall did not erupt into chaos. Rather, a hush profound as snowfall blanketed all. Jaime lowered his sword, golden hair shimmering with sweat. Rhaegar rose, gaze steady, but tears stood in his eyes. He ascended the steps, past his father's corpse, and turned to face gathered lords. "Here ends House Targaryen's madness," he declared, voice carrying to vaulted rafters. "Here begins its redemption or its ruin should we fail." He did not seat himself upon the throne. Instead, he beckoned Ned Stark to stand beside him. "By blood I claim my sire's crown. By right of conquest I might keep it, but I would rather rule by consent. Let the lords of the realm decide if peace has worth." Tywin's brows arched. Varys, sliding from shadows, offered a little clap. Even stern Stannis Baratheon, brought from captivity, stared in grudging respect. Eddard stared at the jagged throne. Memories crashed like breakers. Brandon's death, Rickard's screams, Lyanna's tears. He looked at Rhaegar, seeing not a dragon but a man broken by war yet unyielding in hope. Slowly Ned laid ice across mailed palms and knelt. "Winterfell will heed the call of counsel," he said. "And should it choose you, my sword will serve the crown that serves the realm." Across the throne room, men murmured, some assent, some doubt. Yet the old order had cracked. New possibilities seeped through fractures. Rhaegar reached, not for crown, but for Ned's shoulder. "Rise, Lord Stark. We have a realm to mend." Outside the city, bells began to ring. Warning or welcome none could yet say. Dawn's first light spilled over Blackwater Bay, and gulls wheeled above rust-red spires. Small folk gathered along muddy streets, whispering of dragons and wolves, of lion lords and wildfire. Rumor raced swifter than ravens. The king was dead, slain by his own guard. The prince had spared the city. The North rode beside the dragon to forge a peace none yet understood. In the Tower of the Hand, Rhaegar convened a council of 7: Ned Stark, Jon Connington restored to grace, Oberyn Martell in warm southern silks, Lord Hoster Tully brought by river barge, Tywin Lannister dour yet shrewd, Stannis Baratheon bound by wary truce, and the prince himself. They debated for hours. Laws to curb royal excess, restitution for rebel houses, the fate of Storm's End. Voices rose, tempers flared, but under Ned's steady calm and Rhaegar's relentless courtesy, agreements slowly shaped themselves. Elsewhere, Lyanna Stark was born by swift horse south from the Red Mountains of Dorne. Riding in Ashera Dane's company, babe cradled close. Her journey would take many days. Each dawn Rhaegar climbed the Maiden Vault parapet to watch the road like a poet awaiting inspiration. On the 7th dusk, he sent Ned a sealed paper. "When she comes, I would have you stand as witness to our union before gods and men. My vows must be spoken under eyes that will hold me to them." Ned pocketed the letter without comment, though something soft flickered in his iron gaze. That night he walked along the outer wall overlooking the city. Torchlight guttered. Distant laughter drifted from taverns where victory was toasted in watery ale. He thought of Ben-Jen, of Cat and little Rob awaiting news, of the chill gods wood where ravens nested in winter's hush. He heard footsteps and found Rhaegar approaching, cloak loose, violet eyes reflecting torch glow. "Walk with me," the prince said. They paced the battlements. Below, the city's lights mapped crooked streets like veins. "I meant what I said," Rhaegar began. "About you as hand." Ned's breath left white plumes. "And I meant my caution. A hand must trust his king, and be trusted in kind." "Then ask," Rhaegar said, stopping. "Ask any question, and I will answer." Ned studied him. Moonlight silvered the prince's hair. "Did you love Lyanna?" A long silence. "I loved the idea of her first," Rhaegar said at last, voice faint. "A wolf made in winter roses. My songs spoke of such. Then I loved the spirit of her, bright and fierce and free. Only later did I see the girl, frightened by the weight of worlds I placed upon her. I would set that weight down if she let me." Ned considered. "And Elia? Love different but no less," Rhaegar murmured. "She released me from our vows before gods and men, that the realm might have the prince that was promised. Her courage shames my own." Wind tugged Ned's cloak. "Prophecies again." Rhaegar chuckled dryly. "Perhaps I cannot wholly escape them, yet I have chosen peace over prophecy. A beginning." They resumed walking. Far to the north, beyond sight and sound, snow began to fall upon Moat Cailin, upon Winterfell's towers, upon the wall that guarded realms of men. Changes in the south echoed like distant thunder through cold halls. Some would call them omens of hope, others of doom. For now, a wolf and a dragon paced together on ancient stone, seeking a path that might keep winter's darkness at bay. Every step was fraught, every breath a promise, every heartbeat a drum sounding the cadence of a fragile peace. Days stretched, decisions layered upon decisions like mortar on stone. Rhaegar decreed that all wildfire stores in the city be removed beyond the walls and quenched under guard. Varys orchestrated the purge with spider's efficiency. Scores of earthen pots were ferried to the mouth of Blackwater Bay, smashed upon water where tides bore green flames safely seaward. Small folk cheered as viridian plumes hissed harmless across waves. The great September of Baelor readied for council. Ravens flew to every corner. Old Town, Winterfell, Sunspear, the Eyrie. Lords licked quills, weighed alliances, considered pockets lightened by war. Some snarled at submissi. On to dragons once more. Others feared the lions more than the WRM. All recalled winter's bite and longed for harvests unravaged by marching hosts. In the red keeps Godswood, a mere shadow of Winterfell's. Ned knelt before a slender weirwood transplanted centuries earlier. Blood-red leaves rustled though no wind stirred. He prayed for guidance yet heard only distant echoes of home. When he rose, he found Asher Dane standing behind him, babe in arms, violet-gray eyes luminous. "His name truly is Aemon?" Ned asked softly. "And will remain so," she said. Lyanna insisted. She said the realm would need knights of promise, not war. Ned touched the child's fist. Tiny, perfect. "May he know gentler songs than ours." Ashara's smile trembled. "We shape them now, my lord, brick by bloody brick." On the eve of the Great Council, Lyanna arrived beneath arching gates still charred by wildfire blasts. She rode a white mare. Her hair, grown longer, trailed like dusk behind.
Bells rang.
Crowds pressed close, some shouting, some tossing petals. Rhaegar stepped onto the high road, cloak billowing, eyes shining brighter than any ruby. Lyanna dismounted before him. She wore a simple gown of midnight blue. No jewels but a circlet of winter roses wreathing her brow. Tears glimmered yet did not fall. Rhaegar knelt, forearm across bowed knee, head lowered. She lifted his chin with 2 fingers and kissed him, soft as snow alighting on river ice. Murmurs rippled through onlookers. Astonishment, scandal, hope, yet above all a yearning caught in thousands of throats, that love might restore what hate had sundered. Ned watched from the steps of the September. Grief and joy warred within him. Lyanna's eyes found his. She smiled small, sure. He swallowed hard and managed a nod. Next morn at daybreak, Lords Great and Lesser filled the dragon pit, a ruin chosen for symbolism. Dragons broken and built anew. Rhaegar stood upon a dais amid pillars scorched by fire centuries old. Beside him, Ned Stark, hand crowned with a simple silver clasp shaped like intertwined wolf and dragon. Rhaegar spoke not as conqueror but custodian. He recounted sins of House Targaryen, Summerhall's folly, Aerys' tyranny, then laid forth laws to bind king beneath crown. The small council elected by lords every 7 years, rights of small folk codified, prohibition of wildfire within city walls, vow that no lord's heir might be hostage beyond a single turning of seasons. He ended with words plain yet profound. A crown is not a sword but a shield. May it shield us all. Lords argued. Ravens beat wings overhead. Wind moaned through collapsed vaults. But by dusk, majority acclaim rang. House Tyrell rose in favor, seeing chance to wed Marjorie to Prince Aegon. Dorne endorsed their princeling's niece. Riverlands sought healing for Harrenhal's scars. Even Lord Tywin, flanked by golden suns, dipped his head. Rhaegar accepted with tears unshed. He placed the crown upon his brow, a circlet of dark steel inlaid with subtle rubies, forging humility with nobility. He raised Ned's hand high. The North shall stand beside the Iron Throne, not beneath it. Torches flared, banners unfurled, cheers roared. Somewhere distant a lone wolf howled. A dragon answered not in flame but in song. Harp strings plucked by unseen minstrel at twilight's edge. That night feasts blazed in halls across King's Landing, but Rhaegar's own table remained modest. He dined with Ned, Lyanna, Elia, Ashera, and their children. Aemon slept in Lyanna's arms. Rhaenys shyly braided Jon Snow's hair, laughing when he protested. A quiet peace stole through the chamber. Harp music drifted from an alcove, soft, lilting. Rhaegar set aside goblet and turned to Ned. One war ends, he said. Another waits beyond the wall. Darkness, cold, the ignorance we cherish. Will you help me meet it? Ned considered, then offered a faint smile. Winter is inevitable. But together, perhaps, we can greet it as friends, not foes. Rhaegar raised his cup. To winter, then, may it find the realm ready. Cups clinked. Fire crackled. Outside shutters, snowflakes fell. A gentle, early dusting that melted upon warm cobblestones, leaving only fleeting sparkle under moonlight. For now, at least, the realm breathed easier. Yet futures are fragile things, like frost on autumn leaves. One hard wind may shatter them. Far north beneath the heart tree's pallid boughs, an ancient face carved in would wept red sap. Ravens stirred, cawing into night, and atop the wall, rangers scanned white horizons where shadows moved with minds of ice. The Game of Thrones was far from over, but somewhere in its tangled board, a dragon and a wolf had placed their pieces not for conquest but for hope, daring to imagine a song where fire and ice need not slay each other forever. The first notes had been struck upon ruby-stained strings at a river ford. Now the melody wound onward, quiet yet unbroken, promising that even in a world forged of steel and sorrow, a gentler refrain might one day rise. Rhaegar stood alone in the tower of the Hand Solar, a single beeswax candle gutter flicker casting shifting dragons along the painted walls. The city beyond the shuttered window was quieter tonight than any since his arrival. No mobs, no bells, only the far-off grunt of oxen dragging siege debris from the streets. The prince now king closed his eyes and listened as if to measure the pulse of a realm by stillness alone. Somewhere on the lower floors Ashera sang a lullaby in soft Dornish to baby Aemon. Somewhere else Elia's healer ground powdered willow for a returning fever that stubbornly clung to her frail limbs. Rhaenys and little Aegon must already be asleep, their dreams free for once of screams and smoke. And Lyanna was likely pacing the rose garden Varys had cleared for her, restless as the wolf's moon breaking through late autumn clouds. He felt the sun-warm roughness of the two women's rings against his thumb, the old one of hammered red gold from Elia, the simple silver band Lyanna had insisted upon. He wore neither openly until the September would bless the new triune union, yet his heart weighed them equally. Duty and desire, Peace and prophecy, fire and frost. He exhaled and set the rings back in the glove box before dawn's birds began their piping chorus. A week later, a cold rain slid down the city's slate roofs, and the small council gathered in a high chamber overlooking the Blackwater. Ned arrived first, hair damp. The stark gray in his cloak matched to the skies. Tywin Lannister followed in polished crimson, boots clicking a heartbeat behind. Jon Connington, gaunt from months in chains yet eyes keener than ever, brought parchments detailing grain levies. Stannis Baratheon's jaw was clenched so tight it seemed forged of iron. Oberyn Martell lounged at the window seat, twirling an orange blossom between dusky fingers. Rhaegar entered last, swordless, cloaked in plain black, and took the center chair. One step lower than the Iron Throne, yet infinitely easier to bear. First, Rhaegar began, voice calm but carrying. The matter of oaths. The Great Council affirmed my crown and Lord Stark's hand, but we remain a house divided. Lord Tywin, your bannermen linger outside the city walls. Will you bring them within peace or keep them poised for war? Tywin folded leather-gloved hands. Casterly Rock stands ready to defend the capital from any threat, your grace. Yet mercantile order within the walls begs restoring before my men share their purses with these opportunists. Oberyn's eyebrow arched. Gold cloaks who forget their duties are easily reminded, with a good length of Dornish steel. Stannis glowered. Or a rope. Rhaegar lifted a hand. Then let Tywin's host march through the Lion Gate tomorrow at sunrise. Jon Connington will oversee quartering. No garrison in Flea Bottom, nor within 100 paces of the September or the Keep. He held Tywin's gaze. Your men will answer to the city watch, Lord Tywin, not the other way around. Tywin inclined his head by scarcely a finger width. As your grace commands. Next came whispers of rebellion coiling through the Stormlands. Though Renly Baratheon had bent the knee, pockets of Robert's old bannermen rallied around Storm's End. Stannis slammed a mailed fist on the oaken table. I pledged loyalty here, yet traitors brand my adherence weak. I will sail for Storm's End with half the royal fleet. They'll yield or drown. Ned's voice cut through the tension like clean winter wind. If blood must water another field, let it be the last. Take hostages, not heads. Spare the small folk. Stannis's mouth twisted. But Ned Stark was hand now, and Rhaegar's nod sealed the order. Take Ser Davos as envoy first, Ned added. Smugglers know every cove. He may talk where swords fail. I'll talk, Stannis muttered. If ears remain deaf, Davos will steer the ships. Yet he accepted the parchment of commission and, after a moment, offered a short, respectful bow to Ned. 2 dawns later, Ned and Rhaegar rode out the river gate together, bound up the King's Road to meet a lesser threat of their own. Bands of Sellswords pillaging truce lands between Crown and Riverlord's domains. Gray mist clung to hedges, muffling hoofbeats. They traveled with only 10 guards. Trust required risk, and the 2 men shared an understanding that protection came as much from honor as from steel. At a ruined holdfast near Maidenpool, they found a dozen ragged swords warming stolen ale by a drifting hearth. Rhaegar dismounted first, unarmed save for a harp slung behind his saddle. The brigands sneered when they recognized neither crown nor banners, only a silver-haired man in travel cloak. They sneered more when he plucked the harp and began to sing. But the song held such mournful truth, of a boy chased from orchard by war, of a mother's tears saltier than the sea, of promises kings broke yet singers remembered, that swords wavered. Ned waited until every brute's eyes shone. Then he stepped forward and spoke of amnesty for those who laid down arms, work rebuilding river bridges, pardons written in dragon and wolf ink alike. By the time the harp fell silent, only one man refused. He reached for a dagger. Ned's guards pinned him before steel left leather. They bound him for king's justice, and the rest followed Ned like strays behind a shepherd. That night, by firelight, Rhaegar tuned the harp. Ned cleaned his sword in quiet contemplation. You fight with music more deftly than some with blades, Ned said at last. Rhaegar smiled faintly. Harder to resist a song than a sword, I find. Even prophecy might listen if we play the right notes. Speak of prophecy again, Ned warned. And Cat will call me Southern-addled for trusting a dreamer. Rhaegar's laughter warmed the chill night. Then let us speak of simpler matters. Winter stores, roads, children learning letters instead of war chants. Ned allowed himself a rare chuckle. Teach my Rob that harp, and you might soften his mother's heart toward dragons. When they returned to King's Landing, they found the city swollen with lords secondary and tertiary. Ambitious men sniffing the fresh-baked crust of new power. Varys flitted like a lavender-robed shade through halls, delivering scrolls listing minor disputes. A Tarbeck seeking recompense for burned vineyards, a Swan demanding safe passage home, an Arryn knight accusing gold cloaks of theft. Ned tackled them with northern diligence, but one scroll bore heavier ink. Lord Balon Greyjoy requests audience to discuss Ironborn autonomy. Rhaegar traced the inked kraken. Balon tests us, hoping the realm's wounds bleed distraction. Then we bind him with words before swords, Ned said. Invite him south under guest right. Does a kraken honor guest right? Rhaegar mused. Not if he sails on iron tide unsummoned, Ned replied. But a kraken in a gilded cage of courtesy may choke on his own pride. The king smiled. Very well. Draft the invitation. Make the cage sturdy. Lyanna's arrival at court transformed corridors that had long known only dowager queens and silk-swathed rivals. She donned simple velvet in stark grays and blues, declining the richer fabrics Elia pressed upon her, though she allowed Ash-Era to weave thin silver thread into her sleeves. She sparred daily in the yard with Brienne of Tarth, laughing when sword blows rattled her wrists. Small folk began whispering of the Wolf Queen, a moniker she pretended to chide but secretly cherished. Elia, once confined to sick rooms, found renewed vitality in tutoring Rhaenys beside Lyanna each afternoon. They compared northern ballads and Dornish epics, letting the children act out each legend with wooden swords and paper wings. Ned stumbled upon one such session. Rhaenys flapping parchment feathers, Aegon brandishing a carved wolf, Jon Snow, who had just arrived from Winterfell with Catelyn and baby Sansa, laughing as he played the evil kraken Balon Greyjoy. Lyanna caught Ned's eye and winked. Elia's gentle smile answered. The hand felt a knot in his chest ease, the realm's wild branches grafting slowly onto a single trunk. Yet peace, like late summer fruit, ripened too slowly for some. Tywin Lannister visited the Great September under heavy guard one morning, offering the High Septon a coffer of gold for repairs and faithful works. In truth, the lion purchased whispers, reminding sparrows how dragons had once butchered and burned beneath these very domes. The High Septon preached a sermon hinting that unnatural unions must not sully the Seven's light. Lyanna heard of it that night and fumed. Rhaegar soothed her, promising the faith would bend once they saw the realm prosper. Still, unease coiled. Beyond the capital, other storms gathered. From the neck came ravens bearing Howland Reed's sigil. Wildlings massed in greater numbers along the wall, and rangers vanished north of Gorge. Maester Luwin wrote that Lord Commander Corgyle sought levies of grain and men, fearing early snows. Ned read the parchment thrice before presenting it to council. The Night's Watch is sworn to guard us all, he said quietly. Fail them and we invite shadow through the gate. Tywin waved a dismissive hand. A minor matter of wildlings hardly merits royal coffers while roads crumble. Minor until they raid your cousin's holdfast, Oberyn quipped. Rhaegar intervened. 10,000 bushels and 200 recruits, drawn from criminals awaiting sentence. Gold shields will escort them north before first frost. He glanced at Tywin. Consider it investment. Without the wall, trade from White Harbor suffers. Your ledgers would notice. Tywin said nothing, but his eyes glittered coldly. Storm's End fell bloodlessly. Stannis' ships appeared off Shipbreaker Bay under banners of white. The new single-headed dragon, the direwolf beside it, Baratheon's stag crowned in black mourning cloth. Word drifted back that Renly knelt before his elder brother, and more than half the rebel lords knelt beside him. A garrison of die-hard Robert loyalists accepted clemency through Stannis' stubborn insistence that justice need not equal vengeance. Ned praised Davos in a personal letter. Stannis begrudgingly appended his signature. Yet the victory birthed an unexpected reverberation. Widow Cassandra Estermont, Robert's aunt, wrote begging clemency for Robert's bastard son hidden at Storm's End, an infant mothered by a serving girl. Rhaegar summoned the babe to court under heavy secrecy. When small Gendry reached the Red Keep, Arya cradled him without hesitation. She had lost one child before. Each orphaned life now stirred her heart. Lyanna, too, saw Robert's eyes in the boy and whispered that honor demanded his protection. Thus the king decreed Gendry forge swords alone under Master Mott's tutelage within the city, surname Waters set aside. No claim, but no shame either. And still whispers multiplied. Varys reported merchants from Pentos speaking of a young magister named Illyrio hoarding ships and sellswords, claiming a true Targaryen might rise. Some said Viserys and Princess Daenerys had fled Dragonstone before the fall and now roved the free cities. Rhaegar's jaw tightened at mention of his siblings. He ordered a letter written in his own hand, sealing it with 3 no for impressions: the dragon, the wolf, the sun and spear, and the crowned stag. It offered sanctuary, marriage prospects, amnesty for any slight. He sent it on fastest galleys, but doubted the sea could outrun bitterness. Winter's first true bite arrived with a violet dusk that froze the fountain pools in the outer courts into thin, perfect mirrors. Ned walked with Catelyn beneath skeleton fig trees, listening to her speak of Bran's latest climb and Arya's refusal to embroider. Kat's breath clouded. Ned pressed her gloved hand between his own and felt how far from Winterfell they both stood, south and north, memory and present. What of whispers that Lisa insists Jon Arryn bring their son to court? Kat asked. She fears for the boy's life among Lannisters. Jon's health falters, Ned admitted. He wishes young Robert fostered where hawks may strengthen his chest. Perhaps Dragonstone, saline air, sea breezes. He paused. But Tywin will overhear and suspect plots.
Kat Sigid.
Suspect? He already breathes conspiracy. I questioned his guards yesterday. Each wears lion studs where once city sigils sufficed. Rhaegar sees, Ned said, though even he felt the words thin. Kat squeezed his arm, eyes urging caution. Tywin indeed plotted. Not knives, he was too seasoned for crude blades, but gold and favors. He lent coin to rebuild the burnt guild hall of alchemists, ensuring their gratitude. He sponsored orphanages, binding small folk hearts. He lavished silks upon the faith, and arranged betrothal of Princess Myrcella, newly born to Cersei by Lord Baratheon's line severed. To Dorne? To the Riverlands? No. Tywin proposed Myrcella to Prince Aegon, welding lion to dragon before wolf could claim equal footing. Rhaegar hesitated, mindful of Elaya's failing strength. Oberyn objected. Dorne would not see his sister slighted again. The court trembled. Then Elia collapsed during dusk prayers. Fever raged anew, and maesters whispered her lungs bled within. Rhaegar spent 3 nights at her bedside, Lyanna on the opposite side, each clutching a frail, burning hand. On the 4th dawn, Elia awoke lucid. She asked for her children, kissed both cheeks, and drew Rhaegar close. Remember, sun and spear pierce shadow only together, she whispered. Do not let my ghost divide you. She pressed her wedding band into Lyanna's palm. Sister now, she breathed, smiling. Watch them. An hour later her breath stilled. Morning bells tolled across the city. Even Tywin bowed his head. Rhaegar wept openly on the September steps, crown askew. Lyanna held his shoulders as Ned gathered the sobbing children. Oberyn roared grief in the Hall of Lamps, eyes aflame. But when dawn broke, he knelt before the Iron Throne and swore the Martells would guard Rhaenys and Aegon as fiercely as their own. The realm, inhaling the perfume of tragedy, waited to see if love or vengeance would rise from Elaya's pyre. Snow fell the night of her cremation, soft flakes drifting through perfumed smoke as pyres crackled on the Blackwater shoreline. The mingled scent of lavender and pine lingered when embers cooled. Rhaegar visited Ned Solar, still dressed in black linens. The hand offered mulled wine. Rhaegar declined. She is ash and memory, the king whispered. Yet she asked me to carry hope. He paced among wolf's head maps, fingertip tracing the wall's jagged ink line. Prophecies spoke of prince born of dragon and wolf, Aegon, or perhaps Aemon. He paused. Or mayhap prophecy lies. His voice broke. I would trade any song for her heartbeat. Ned closed the distance and gripped the prince's forearm. Songs or no, the realm needs a king alive to heed winter, not drown in ghosts. Mourn her, then rise and do the work. Rhaegar's violet eyes glimmered but cleared. Then help me shape the work. Always, Ned said simply. Work began with the faith. Rhaegar met the High Septon at dawn within the September statue-lined ambulatory. He wore neither crown nor sword, only a plain wool robe. He spoke of mercy and duty, of dragons that once burned cities and wolves that once flayed foes, and how both houses must bow before the seven if the realm would endure darkness approaching from beyond the wall. He pledged 10,000 dragons of gold to rebuild seps razed during the war and further promised that his union with Lyanna would be sanctified by all 7 aspects. No polygamy hidden behind relic Valyrian rites. The Septon, confronted by humility and gold in equal weight, agreed. Later that day he preached unity from the pulpit, and murmurs of Wolf Queen became refrains of Blessed Queen. Tywin's maneuver with Myrcella faltered. Rhaegar publicly vowed Princess Rhaenys would wed a son or daughter of Highgarden to fortify Reach loyalty, while Aegon's match remained open, an unspoken olive branch to either Aery or Riverlands. The lion's paws clawed air in frustration, yet Tywin only smiled behind guarded eyes. Wolves could howl, dragons could flame, lions waited for carrion. A fortnight after Elaya's pyre, winter swept down the King's Road on a spear of sleet. Ravens from the wall arrived half-frozen. A ranging found every village from the gift to Craster's Keep abandoned. Dead men walked at night. Corgyle begged the crown send glass candles, dragon glass, maesters, anything. The council hushed as Ned read aloud each chilling line. Old stories, Tywin scoffed, though he drew his cloak tighter. Old stories walk again, Ned replied. Ignore them and we gift the realm to Shadow. Rhaegar looked to Connington. How many men can we spare? The Stormlands await harvest. The Reach demands garrisons against bandits. We can free 500 crownsmen and 100 Dornish spears, Connington said. Not enough, Ned stated. Send me with Northmen. Winterfell owes debt to the Night's Watch. Lyanna gripped his sleeve. You are hand. The realm cannot lose you. It will lose all if the wall falls, Ned said gently. He turned to the king. Command me. I will ride. Rhaegar paced, cloak swirling. At last he stopped before the window where sleet hammered panes like pebbles. Very well, but I come too. Gasps erupted. Tywin's chair scraped. Your grace, the capital, will endure, Rhaegar interrupted softly. Tywin, you command in my stead, bound by council vote. If we fail in the north, Southron crowns matter little. He faced the room. Dragons once fought darkness. If darkness rises anew, a dragon must meet it. Oberyn's grin flashed. Then Dorne's spears ride north. Snow may bite, but fire warms blood. Stannis, recently returned from Storm's End triumph, scowled but added, the royal fleet can carry supplies to White Harbor faster than ox carts. Thus the king's march north was set. Preparation consumed weeks. Master smiths in the dungeons forged dragonglass blades from caches whispered to lie beneath dragonstone. Gendry, though young, apprenticed long into nights shaping black volcanic glass onto spear points. He gave one to Rhaegar. For the king, he murmured shyly. The king knelt, thanked him, and tucked the crude spearhead into his belt beside a more ornate Valyrian dagger. Lyanna insisted on coming. Rhaegar refused. She pleaded, argued, threatened, and finally yielded when Ned promised a raven every 2 days. She gave Rhaegar a bundle of winter roses, their scent faint but sweet, and a cloak woven by Catelyn of grey wolf and white dire wolf fur. When she kissed him farewell, the court saw tears on both cheeks like twin pearls. On the dawn they rode, snowflakes swirled even within the capital's walls. Tywin, bedecked in gold plate, saw them off beneath the gate of the gods. He spoke soft words of safe journeys, yet his eyes never left the crown upon Rhaegar's brow. Varys bowed deeper than ever, but as the king passed he murmured, "A realm can ill afford 2 winters at once, your grace." Rhaegar smiled grimly. "Then keep the second one south till I return." The host moved north. 10,000 mixed foot, 3,000 horse, wagon trains of oats and hardtack, maesters and septons, blacksmiths, falconers, even a troop of singers Rhaegar swore would hearten men when darkness lay heavy. At its center rode Ned and Rhaegar side by side, banners of dragon and wolf flapping together under pale sun. They passed the crossroads in where a solitary gibbet still swung, the last rebel hanged for refusing king's peace. They camped at Moat Cailin, where humid mists replaced the dry cold of further south. Here Ned's bannermen joined: Karstark, Mormont, Glover, Umber. A bear of a man named Galbart Glover clasped Rhaegar's forearm and grinned. "So this is the dragon who sings?" he boomed. "Sing us heat, my prince. Nights grow long." At Winterfell the host doubled. Cat embraced Ned fiercely before courtiers and captains. Bran scrambled across battlements to glimpse silver dragon banners. Arya demanded sword lessons from Ser Arthur Dayne. Rhaegar toured the ancient crypts with Lyanna's brothers. At Lyanna's stone effigy he laid the wilted roses she gave him, whispering a vow to guard her living namesake till seasons turned. That night the heart tree's red eyes watched Ned pray. Rhaegar joined him, though the old gods were not his. Together they knelt, silence between them not awkward but reverent, as though wind itself listened. Beyond the wall the dead gathered strength. Scouts reported pale blue eyes gleaming in forest gloom, shadows that melted when torches neared. Val, a wildling woman who slipped through the abandoned night fort to warn of betrayal among her own, met the king and Hand in the watchtower at Castle Black. Her tale chilled them more than the wind. "The giant mag the mighty walks again, flesh gray, eyes bright as frozen stars," she whispered. "And the king of night calls for broken weirwoods to build a bridge of bones." Maester Aemon, now over a century yet mind sharp, listened, cataract-clouded eyes filming tears. He took Rhaegar's hands, felt the prince's rings, and spoke. "I once fled my name to serve the realm. Now the realm finds me again." He smiled thinly. "Perhaps we need both dragon and wolf, not one or the other." Rhaegar squeezed the old maester's frail fingers. "Then guide us, great uncle." Ravens flew south, carrying final words should the wall fall. Tywin read one such raven perched above the Hand's tower balcony. He stroked its feathers, considered the parchment. Logistics of dragonglass shipments, appeal for wildfire charges to seal breaches. Wildfire, his father had warned him of its caprice. Yet crises make kings. Absence makes opportunities. He penned measured replies, but deep in the rock's counting room he planned contingencies. Should the North devour his liege, Casterly Rock would inherit the realm by careful marriage and coin. He ordered more gold minted, more food stored, more sellswords quietly hired. In Dorne, Oberyn's daughters trained with spear and blade under an orange moon, swearing to protect the children of the Dragon-Wolf Union. In the Eyrie, Lisa Arryn obsessively rocked young Robert, fretting that winter's whispers would climb passes on spider legs. And across the narrow sea, in the manse of Illyrio Mopatis, a silver-haired boy with violet eyes crushed a peach and swore he would reclaim what was stolen by a half-blood usurper. The first storm hit before Rhaegar's army even completed construction of extra palisades. Snow fell sideways, obliterating torches, filling ramparts in drifts taller than children. Rangers reported the lake near Hardhome froze solid in a single night, trapping ships in ice 9 feet thick. Fires kept long into dawn revealed tracks, human but wrong, as if the bones inside bent different. Rhaegar walked the curtain wall in shining ebony plate laced with faint ruby chips, a spear of dragonglass at his back. Ned accompanied clad in mail heavy with hoarfrost. They looked out upon the haunted forest where silhouettes shifted between tree trunks like lantern shadows. "Do your legends speak of hope?" Rhaegar asked quietly. "Hope," Ned's breath steamed. "Hope is for summer. We have duty. Then we do our duty." They descended to the courtyard where horns summoned every captain. The plan: sorties by day, walls fortified by night, dragonglass arrowheads distributed. Maester Aemon would direct brewings of fire oil less volatile than wildfire yet hotter than pitch. Rhaegar insisted on joining the first sortie despite Commander Corgyle's protests. Ned would remain to command the castle. "You fight better than I," Rhaegar argued before the gate. "Sword of the Morning sings of you." He clasped Ned's shoulder. "Lead them if I do not return." "You'll return," Ned said. Rhaegar smiled, pulled a winter rose from inside his gorget, and tucked it behind Ned's ear. "For Lyanna," he said, and rode through the opened gate. The sortie met horror and miracle alike. They found a ring of weirwood saplings, each cut at the trunk and bled red sap that did not freeze. The dead ringed the clearing, corpses of wildlings and knights watch alike, kneeling in unnatural reverence around a heart tree stump. Rhaegar's spears shattered 2 wights before realizing the corpses rose anew without fire. Ser Arthur Dayne, blade dawn shining pale, severed skull from spine thrice yet still arms crawled. Only dragonglass ended the thing. At the clearing's center stood a being tall and gaunt, face parchment pale, eyes blazing frost. It regarded Rhaegar without emotion and raised one bony finger. Wind died. Silence pressed like iron on lungs. The thing spoke not with sound but with memory. Rhaegar saw Summerhall flames, saw Robert's hammer, saw Elia's smile. The visions shattered when Ser Jorah Mormont drove a dragonglass spear through the creature's chest. It dissolved into blowing snow, and wights collapsed like cut marionettes. The king returned at dusk, armor crusted in frost, eyes haunted. He sought Ned immediately, recounting each detail. Maester Aemon listening paled. "The others test you, my prince," he said. "They learn our strengths. Next they will test our walls." And indeed, 2 nights later, the forest glowed eerie blue as a horde approached under starlight. Drums of ice pounded, or perhaps that was heartbeats ringing in each defender's ears. Rhaegar climbed the king's tower and directed catapults loaded not with stone but barrels filled with thin wildfire concoctions diluted by Maester Craft to burn blue-white when shattered. They flared brighter than day, lighting snarling white faces melting like wax. Yet for every dead wight 3 more appeared. The gate buckled. Ned commanded archers lining the inner ward. Arya, who had stowed aboard a supply wagon despite Cat's horror, knocked arrows tipped in dragonglass and felled more than any grown man, her small fists bleeding in the cold. Jon Snow fought beside her. Ghost the direwolf tore legions of dead men before faltering under frost. Jon hauled the white wolf to safety, tears freezing to his cheeks. On the rampart Rhaegar found himself blade to blade with another tall pale creature, this one clad in ancient bronze. Dawn clanged against an otherworldly sword of crystal that froze steel on touch. Ser Arthur shattered half his blade before Rhaegar thrust dragonglass into the creature's hip. It shrieked and exploded in shards, slicing his cheek. Blood hissed on stone, but the king did not falter. When sunrise pinked the sky, the dead retreated as one, drawn back by hidden call. Castle Black stood, though part of the gate was in splinters and 3 towers smoldered. Maester Aemon wept quietly to see ghost stories turned flesh, yet lived to scrawl neat letters for ravens. The long night returns. Send all aid. Rhaegar sat by Ned in shattered courtyard while brothers carried corpses to pyres. They shared water from Ned's flask. The Northman's hand shook, but his eyes remained fierce. "Still wish you were south with songs?" Ned asked. The king's smile was thin. "Songs lead here. The realm fights on this field, not in throne rooms." His gaze rose to the wall gleaming peach and gold. "I will bring a dragon to this fight if I must." "Dragons are gone," Ned said. "Some say," Rhaegar replied, "but Dragonstone whispers in heat even midwinter. Perhaps within its stone bones embers yet glow." Ned exhaled frost. "Careful with hope. Prophecy demands more than blood." "Then let hope serve us," Rhaegar said firmly. "Not the other way around." Days blurred into drills, repairs, scouting. Jon Snow and Val guided secret tunnels beneath the ice for surprise flanking. Arya and Gendry fashioned new spearheads. Ygritte, a fiery wildling girl Jon saved in the melee, pledged her freefolk to fight shadow crows beside crows in black. Cultures merged in necessity. Umbers taught wildlings shield wall, wildlings taught southern knights snowfooting, maesters taught all to fear the cold more than each other. And south, Tywin Lannister prepared. He strengthened garrison walls, rationed grain, minted new gold flamboyantly stamped with lion and dragon both, to remind subjects who supplied bread and coin. He corresponded with Illyrio, promising harbor rights in Lannisport for Pentoshi fleets once the War of Ice ended. Varys watched but intervened not. He suspected a greater enemy than Lannister ambition brewing far east. Whispers of a call for Dragonfire reborn. Spiders scuttled to and fro carrying tidings. Lyanna, heavy with second child, weighted in the red keeps solar weaving direwolf sigils onto blankets. She read each raven from the wall, memorized every casualty, and wrote replies brimming with stubborn hope. She refused midwives' entreaties to rest. Her babe, she claimed, would be born when the realm most needed new life. In Dorne, Oberyn drilled 1,000 spearmen in dragonglass-dipped pikes. At Highgarden, Mace Tyrell dispatched wagons of turnips and barley to the neck. At Pike, Balon Greyjoy secretly built black-hulled longships. And across the sea, Viserys paced Illyrio's manse, swearing that storms in Westeros would drown the usurper dragon along with his wolf cub. 3 weeks after the first siege, a second came, wider, colder, cunning. The dead advanced under cover of an eerie stillness. No horn had sounded. Only Ghost's low growl warned the garrison. Shields clanged moments before frostfog swept in like living mist. Torches sputtered out. Whites scaled the ice using frozen picks. Inside, pale spiders big as dogs scuttled across yard tiles, webs feathering stone into ice lace. Rhaegar ordered archers to fall back to Central Keep, then led a sally through the eastern sallyport, spear of dragonglass in hand, Ser Arthur wielding half-length Dawn Reground to keener edge. Snowblind men followed the gleaming streak of rubies on the king's breast as though a living standard. They clashed with whites among shadowed pines where lantern light refracted off ice-rimmed leaves until every shape blurred. Ned rallied defense upon the inner bailey. Arya stood atop the stables launching arrow after arrow until Jon dragged her inside against her protest. Maester Aemon, guided by Samwell Tarly, oversaw the lighting of great iron braziers filled with pitch and dragonglass shards that when heated shattered into molten rain across attackers. Hours passed like heartbeats measured in screams and steel. At last horns blew thrice, Ser Jorah returning from ranging with Giantsbane and 50 wild hunters. They smashed into the white flank, mammoth bones repurposed into clubs, and the dead lines cracked. Dawn flared once more, and the undead retreated for good as eastern sky paled. This time casualties numbered hundreds. Among the dead lay Ser Arthur Dayne, crystal blade through his heart. He died smiling, saying, "Sword of the Morning Guard's dawn eternal." Rhaegar knelt over him until snows covered ruby scales on his throat, then rose and addressed the brothers in ragged courtyard. "This cannot hold forever," he said, voice hoarse. "We need fire born of blood and breath. We need dragons." Ned met his gaze. "Then we ride to Dragonstone." Maester Aemon coughed, voice thin. "Send ravens first. Research old texts. There is lore of waking dragons from stone, but it demands sacrifice," Rhaegar finished quietly. "We will seek another way." He looked to the Watchers, Jon, Val, Giantsbane, Stannis' nephew Edric Storm newly arrived with blacksmith plans, even Ygritte with fiery braid. "We fight as one. We'll find what is needed together." Ravens bearing such dire tidings reached King's Landing in freak autumn thunder. Lyanna felt first pangs that night. She refused birthing bed until letters were read. When told Ned yet lived, she laughed and wept at once, then allowed the midwife to guide her. At dawn, a daughter screamed her first breath into candlelit chamber. Lyanna named her Elia Snow of the Trident, promising the babe would someday meet her half-siblings under banners whole and healed. Tywin congratulated the queen with cordial speech, yet eyes lingered on the child's dark hair. A black-haired Targaryen heir might confuse succession lines. An opportunity, perhaps, for the Rock. He dispatched more letters east, subtle as thread. At Dragonstone, wind screamed through basalt corridors when Rhaegar arrived by galley with Ned, Jon, Sam, Aemon, and a cadre of smiths. They carried barrels of obsidian powder and parchments describing alchemical rites gleaned from Aemon's memories. They explored caverns glowing faintly with geothermal heat. Rhaegar felt the hum of old magic in his bones. In the ancient chamber of the painted table, he laid a dragon's egg, dull red, hairline cracked, upon a bronze brazier stoked with dragonglass coals. He whispered Valyrian phrases until voice broke. Nothing happened. Ned placed a hand on his shoulder. Fire alone may not hatch stone. Perhaps life for life. Rhaegar flinched. No child sacrifices. No reprise of Summerhall. Not human life, Sam piped. He produced manuscripts recounting children of the forest weaving spells of blood and sap, seeds and song. The first men used heart tree sap when forging blades of dawn. Maybe dragon eggs need blood of weirwood or sap of glass candles. A plan formed. Send ravens to Winterfell for sap, to Dorne for bright fire blossoms, to Citadel for alchemical filters. Time, though, ran as thin as winter daylight. That same thin daylight found Balon Greyjoy launching raids along western coastlines. Lannisport burned for a night before Tywin's fleet, bolstered by cell sails from Pentos, drove Ironborn back. The Lion wrote Rhaegar requesting permission to mount full assault on Pike. The reply, penned by Ned's proxy from the Wall, forbade aggression. All steel to northern front. Tywin bristled but obeyed. Lions still had eyes on bigger prey. In the Reach, Lady Olenna sensed Tywin's intrigues and quietly arranged her grandson Willis's betrothal to Lyanna's newborn daughter. Dragon, wolf, rose. Alliance seeds sprouted like hardy winter wheat. Winter deepened. At the Wall, the third siege came without warning. The others did not proceed with white vanguard but came themselves. 12 pale kings in tarnished crowns of icicles, wielding blades that sang a song of cold so deep it cracked stone. The first stroke severed Eastwatch by the sea's curtain wall. The second froze the harbor solid. Flames flickered, died. Men screamed as frost blossomed across flesh. Rhaegar, atop a parapet, felt the deep drum again. Prophecy's cadence. He closed his eyes and breathed once, twice. Within his mind, the chord he had chased since youth resolved. A perfect fifth ringing across time. He unsheathed a dagger of dragonglass and slashed his palm, blood bright. He pressed bleeding hand to the ruby in his breastplate, whispered words older than Valyria. The ruby pulsed, drank crimson. A gout of heat burst from his palm and swept the blade crimson white. He lifted the dagger skyward. Light shot upward like dawn's first spear ray, piercing clouds. The others faltered. Whites collapsed. In that heartbeat of stillness, Ned signaled the catapults to launch wildfire oil. The conflagration burned hotter than any previous, fed by whatever force Rhaegar had awakened. 3 of the pale kings melted into screaming statues. The others retreated. Rhaegar sagged, barely conscious. Jon and Arya caught him. Ned approached, eyes wide. The ruby in the king's armor now glowed molten. "What did you do?"
Ned breathed. "Met prophecy halfway," Rhaegar whispered.
"No dragons born, just dragon within." He smiled faintly. Perhaps enough. Enough for that night. But the long night had only begun. The realm girded itself. Dorne spears marched, Tyrell harvest wagons rolled north. Lannister gold financed new forges for dragonglass arrowheads. Balon Greyjoy, seeing coastal raids yield little glory, signed brittle peace to send longships ferrying grain along rivers choked with ice. Even Tywin bowed to necessity, though he plotted how lion might roar once winter thawed. In King's Landing, Lyanna received a raven sealed in black wax. She broke it, read Rhaegar's steady hand describing victory bought in blood, his gem aflame. She kissed the parchment and whispered to Elia Snow, "Your father is light against shadows." Then to herself, "So am I." She summoned the city's women, seamstresses, washerwives, septas, and organized them to weave cloaks padded with wolf furs for every soldier marching north. They sang northern lullabies as needles danced. In the crypts of Winterfell, branched roots crept through cracked stone where old kings of winter slept sword in lap. One root split around a forgotten stone chest. Inside rested a sword not of iron or dragonglass but of translucent milk-white hue, chilled yet humming faint warmth. Bran Stark, exploring with Hodder and Old Nan's tales echoing, found it. He sensed its pulse under small fingers. He told Maester Luwin, who relayed message to Castle Black. Word reached Rhaegar on Dragonstone, and memory stirred. The last Sword of Dawn lost to Night's King tales before the wall was raised, now perhaps found. Hope sometimes grows in deepest crypt. Rhaegar returned to the wall bearing 2 crates of glowing ember eggs faintly warm even through straw. He met Ned on the ice-shattered battlements. Snow fell thick, muffling all. Ned placed the milk-white sword in Rhaegar's grasp. The blade brightened as ruby on King's chest flared. Dragon and ice together hummed one chord. Ned's voice was low. "We end this or the world ends." Rhaegar nodded. Together they turned toward the haunted north where auroras writhed like wounded serpents above Treeline. The final act approached. Wolf and dragon side by side, prophecy and pragmatism, steel and song. And somewhere within winter's breath, hope kindled. Not in fiery blaze but in quiet coals glowing against the dark, waiting to flare when the last darkness pressed too near. They would fight, bleed, and perhaps die. But the realm had chosen to stand together. Lion, wolf, stag, sun, rose, kraken, trout. All banners stitched onto one cloak flapping in icy wind. And if songs survived the coming storm, minstrels would sing not of a single king's triumph, but of a fellowship forged at river's ford and tempered on wall of ice, holding back night so dawn could rise again. The first faint light of that dawn glimmered on the horizon, pale gold against indigo. Rhaegar tightened his grip on the white sword. Ned drew ice in measured salute. Above them ravens wheeled, black silhouettes against brightening sky, carrying the simple, stubborn message to every corner of Westeros. Stand! The ravens had barely vanished into the whitening sky when work resumed with a ferocity more relentless than the cold. Men and women of half a dozen peoples. Green-cloaked rangers, bear-cloaked Umbiers, spear women from Dorne wrapped to the brows in wolf fur, even a knot of ironborn too stubborn to let their raiding coasts freeze. Bent shoulder to sled and axle and pulley, hauling crates of dragonglass, barrels of Maester Aemon's simmering fire oil, and the strange, pale sword Bran Stark had unearthed from Winterfell's crypts. Castle Black reverberated with a cadence no drummer could match. The clang of new riveted iron, the rasp of saw blades through frozen spruce, the dull thump of fist on door as each captain roused his watch to the next impossible task. Ned Stark moved through it all with tireless calm, a single gray presence knitting fractious limbs into one body. He worked without gauntlets, his hands growing cracked and raw, and men followed him because to lag behind the hand was to confess a lesser will. Rhaegar, too, bled fingers and knuckles beside them, shoveling gravel, steadying sagging beams, fetching half-conscious wounded from snowdrifts. No crown upon that silver-haired brow and no ceremony in his voice beyond a quiet well done or again. The king's humility shamed the haughty and gave courage to the afraid. And where courage alone failed, a hush of song drifted after, soft as the last embers of a summer dusk. By the 3rd day after the 2nd siege, the battered outer gate had become a squat iron bastion layered with boiled hides and dragonglass studs that gleamed black-violet under frost. The wall itself, once pierced by the others' rime-etched spears, now bristled with catapult arms ballasted by mammoth bone, each cradling a clay urn the size of a child. Within those urns sloshed Aemon's mixture, oil rendered from whale blubber thickened with pulverized obsidian and laced with pinches of wildfire so feeble it would burn out without air, until the urn shattered. Even Tywin Lannister, receiving ash-specked samples in the Red Keep's armory, raised one crisp eyebrow at its fury. Yet no defense mattered more than the ritual soon whispered by every hearth. 3 flames, 3 breaths, 3 vows. Samwell Tarly had distilled it from inks of shattered manuscripts at the Citadel and half-forgotten wildling chants Val, had coaxed from gray-haired matriarchs. The rite demanded the joining of fire, blood, and sap. The heart sap of a weirwood newly wounded, the living blood of a dragon seed, and a flame kindled not by flint or spark but by the breath of one whose life had been remade by winter's mercy. Maester Aemon, blind but ageless, assured them the words harked back to the pact, older than Valyria, older perhaps than men. "So we open the egg?" Arya asked, bruised fingers tracing a dull blue shell no larger than a helmet. "Not break," Aemon corrected, voice thin. "Coax. A dragon is stone until the world itself convinces it to wake. And the world is cold and cruel just now," Jon muttered, holding Ghost's muzzle as the dire wolf whined, the stump of a frost-shattered ear seeping pink. He looked at Rhaegar. "Who is dragon seed enough to bleed for this?" Rhaegar's answering smile was resigned. "Is the question who must or who will?" Before either boy could speak further, Ned entered the tower chamber carrying a small cask carved in spirals of dark red. Sticky sap oozed around the cork. "The old gods bleed for us tonight," he said, setting the cask on a rug of white bear hide. "Let no one suggest the North spared its share." The courtyard selected for the rite was a circle bordered by half-collapsed sheds, shields of ice leaning like broken teeth. Full dark had barely fallen, though none could tell for certain beneath the swirling snow. Hundreds gathered nonetheless. Black brothers wearing new strips of green for hope, free folk in patchwork furs, Reach captains smelling of turned earth and crushed rosemary, Dornish spears shimmering beneath thin silk veils whose colors looked ghostly in moonlight. At the center stood 3 stone eggs, each cradled in nested bowls of hammered bronze. One was ocean blue shot through with veins of gold, one the hue of rusted iron kissed by deep crimson, the last a swirled mix of bone white and shadow gray, as if storm clouds had fossilized. Bran Stark, cheeks red as winterberries, poured weirwood sap over the shells until rivulets steamed. Maester Aemon, guided by Sam, pressed a tremulous palm upon each shell in turn, murmuring words none living knew. Then Rhaegar stepped forward, ruby in his gorget pulsing like a slow heartbeat. He drew a thin dagger of dragonglass, chipped only once in battle, and sliced a clean line across his left forearm. Blood splashed crimson onto the iron-hued egg, sank into its scales, and vanished. A gasp rippled through the onlookers as the shell briefly shimmered, brighter than fresh spilled wine. Jon Snow followed. His cut was shorter, his blood darker. He let it spill upon the blue egg. A tremor passed beneath their boots, so slight many thought it fancy. Arya came next, stubborn lips a tight line while she reopened an earlier scrape on her knuckles. Bran had volunteered too, but Maester Luwin, back from Winterfell with the sword of Milkwhite, insisted the lad's gift lay elsewhere. Instead it was Val, fierce and unblinking, who matched Arya's offering, her blood dotting the storm-gray shell in stark beads. Last came Ygritte. "I got me no dragon in the bones," she admitted, "but I got snow." She nicked the inside of her elbow and spat once on the wound, a wilding's blessing, and her bright copper blood joined the rest. The courtyard fell silent save for the hush of drifting snowflakes. Maester Aemon raised his frail voice. 3 flames. Ned stepped forward holding a single taper taken from the Lord Commander's bedchamber. It sputtered green-blue, the same compound that would sear the whites. First flame forged of dragonglass. He lowered the taper into a brazier ringed with black shards. They winked like stars and caught with a sudden roar. Blue-white fire spiraled skyward, so cold it hurt to look at. Rhaegar reached into the strange flame barehanded, and it parted though no one felt heat. He cupped that impossible fire between curved palms and bent low to breathe upon the shells. 1 measured breath for each egg. Frost spread across his hair. His lips cracked and bled anew, leaving red smears on white beard stubble. Aemon's voice quavered. Second flame forged of heart sap. Bran took a brand dipped in the oozing weirwood sap, touched it to the blue fire, and the sap ignited sickly crimson. The smell was of autumn leaves crushed under hoof, sweet and mournful. Rhaegar gathered those scarlet wisps and let them mingle with the bluish tongues already swirling round the eggs. Third flame forged of life renewed, Aemon whispered. Every eye turned to the sword of milk-white Bran had found. Dawn? Or some lost sister blade? No one knew. Ned now lifted it two-handed into the fire's twin hues. The blade drank both colors, pulsing opal. A thrum like distant thunder passed through the courtyard. Snow ceased falling. Wind hushed. For one impossibly quiet heartbeat, the world held its breath. Rhaegar placed one blood-slick hand upon the sword's flat, the ruby against his throat blazing bright as a summer sun. Jon beside him did likewise, then Arya, Val, and Ygritte. Bran stepped forward at last, small hand pressed against Dawn's pommel. Sam guided Maester Aemon's trembling fingers to rest just above the guard. Together they spoke, some lines old tongue, some Valyrian, some a rough patchwork Bran had scraped from half-dreamed memories of direwolf visions. The words made little sense to most ears but were heavy as stone. Life thrummed. The 3 eggs cracked, in faint hairline fissures first, then a rapid staccato of breaking that echoed off the icy wall like tiny hammers. Light bled from every crevice. Crimson from iron egg, sapphire from blue, ghost white from stormshell. Cracks widened into glowing seams. The courtyard erupted in color. Ruby red painted faces, blue poured like moonlit water, white so pure it seemed absence of hue rather than presence. And then shards flew. Everyone staggered back under pelting fragments hot and cold at once. Where the eggs had rested now crouched 3 shapes no larger than hounds. Winged, clawed, scales slick in color of yolk-bright flame, deep ocean and moonlit cloud. They were wet with birth ichor, yet tiny coils of smoke threaded from their nostrils. One shook itself, scattering sparks. Another hissed, eyes like chips of polished opal. The last lifted slender wings half-folded, revealing skin so thin lantern light shone through. The crimson hatchling fixed on Rhaegar first, cocking its head, then scrambled ungainly along the bronze bowl's rim until it leapt onto the king's breastplate and coiled about his neck. Rhaegar's gasp stuttered between awed laughter and pain. Its talons pricked Arya sharp. He raised both hands but did not remove it. Instead he guided the blue hatchling toward Jon Snow. The creature sniffed curiously, then seal amber-flamed eyes, blinked slow acceptance. The white-gray dragon crept to Bran, climbed his fur-lined sleeve, and settled purring against the boy's chest. Cheering would have shattered the hush, but none dared. Hearts hammered too fast for voice. Even the ghosts of the slain seemed lean closer from the darkened ramparts to witness second birth of dragons. Only when Maester Aemon sagged did sound return. A low moan as the old man crumpled, Sam catching him just in time. Aemon's sightless gaze shifted, perhaps seeking those living shadows of Valyria. "Warmth?" he whispered, tears frosting along faded wrinkles. "I feel warmth," and he did not speak again. They burned him the next night on a pyre stacked with driftwood from Eastwatch's ruined docks. His broken spectacles laid upon his chest, Dawn resting lengthwise as honor guard. The dragons, Redfire, Bluewing, and Cloud, circled high in slow spirals, keening a note unlike any bird or beast. Snowflakes soared upward in the hot wind and ignited into brief pinpricks of orange before vanishing. Jon thought it the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, though Arya whispered it was the saddest. Bran just held Cloud close, feeling each tremor of the fledgling's feather-light heart. After the flames sank to coals, Ned called council in the old shield hall. Rhaegar presided half-leaning on a pillar, healed yet bone-weary, while the crimson wormling snoozed beneath his cloak collar. Captains arrayed themselves on benches still scarred by axe marks. Stannis Baratheon just in from Southron March with battered fleet reports. Lord Mace Tyrell's eldest, Willis, bearing fresh-bred shipments. Tormund Giantsbane picking his teeth with a shard of dragonglass. Even Ser Jaime Lannister, golden hair now peppered with gray, wearing Night's Watch black. The tone was stark. Winter storms had stranded half the Dornish supply wagons. A third of the Eastwatch palisade remained rubble. Worse, scouts reported the others massing within the Valley of Then. 30 leagues north but moving with frightening speed once night thickened. They would be upon the wall inside 10 days. 3 dragons may soon be 3 wyverns frozen on the snow, Stannis growled. We must strike first. Strike with what? Willis Tyrell demanded. Hatchlings that fit in a cradle? Even grown. 3 cannot roast an army the size we face. Then we do not face their whole strength at once, Ned said, rolling an inked map across table boards. We strike where they funnel, here Icehead Gorge. If we drop the gorge walls, we split their force. Jon traced the line with a gloved finger. Too narrow for armies, perfect for a dragon pass. Rhaegar agreed. We lure them into the gorge. We fill it with fire oil. Dragon flame lights the chasm. Those that survive meet our steels at the far end. Fire oil stores are thin, Sam reminded. Without Maester Aemon to distill more. We have the Alchemists' Guild in King's Landing yet, Jaime said. Lord Tywin's envoys shipped 200 clay casks north behind my escort. Half reached Winterfell before snows halted the caravan. Half is not enough, Ned observed. Half must be made enough, Rhaegar said, tapping the ruby upon his chest. When he withdrew, blood speckled the stone anew. Each time it glowed, fissures reopened in his flesh, as though flame inside sought escape. He ignored the sting. We will melt what snow denies. And so the plan took shape. A vanguard led by Giantsbane, Arya, and a company of spears faster than trebuchets could follow. Siege smiths to rig the gorge walls with barrels. Rangers to rake the slopes, and a small aerial wing. Jon astride Blue Wing, Bran on Cloud, Rhaegar coaxing Redfire to his wrist like a falcon. No saddles, too soon. But the dragons could glide and spit glimmers of flame when fed slivers of volcanic rock said to spark inner furnace. The entire hall knew the gamble. Eggs hardly hatched, riders barely more than stumbling guardians, and wights unnumbered behind them. Yet none offered better hope, and hope, once kindled, demanded air. Night before departure, Ned found Rhaegar alone atop the King's Tower, watching Aurora's twist green-violet ribbons across stars. Redfire perched on his shoulder, wings mantling as wind plucked them. You should sleep, Ned advised. So Lyanna says in every letter, Rhaegar replied, smiling faintly. She writes of our daughter's laugh, how it sounds like wind chimes under ice. Ned leaned on Merlin's stone, letting silence settle. Elia Snow will learn that laugh's power, and Robb will guard her. All children deserve peace. Rhaegar's gaze remained skyward. When dawn breaks after tomorrow's battle, there will be peace, or there will be no children left to remember it. Ned gripped the white sword hanging at his hip. Bran had named it Snowfall. Blades don't make dawn break, he said quietly. Choices do. So let us choose well, Rhaegar replied, and returned to quarters to write a letter sealed in wax. For Lyanna, should dawn not come. The march to Icehead Gorge felt more dream than travel. Mist and moonlight, trees skeletal with rime, dragons flitting overhead like sparks from a dying fire. At times Jon forgot the beast curled against his chest was real until Blue Wing shifted, scales rasping wool, or breathed a puff of smoke sweet as cedar. Bran rode with Arya behind, Cloud crouched between them, while Giantsbane cursed the pace, convinced Skinny Girl and Little Lord should be home by hearth. Arya retorted with a snowball that burst cold powder across his beard, winning a laugh even from stoic Karstarks trailing behind. On fourth day the gorge appeared, a wound-cleaving foothills 10 men deep, its walls jagged basalt streaked with hoarfrost like veins of quartz. Through the center ran a half-frozen creek whose sluggish water steamed under sudden sun. Ned judged the drop to streambed 20 fathoms at narrow end, 30 where walls bowed. Perfect. The first snow dusk they lowered casks by rope, slitting each wide to spill syrupy blackness across ice. The mixture quickly crusted, hiding danger beneath new snow that fell ceaseless. Wooden ramps were shored on far side where allied spears would retreat after luring the ewe. Dead in. At dawn scouts brought news. A column of whites and pale riders broke tree line less than 12 miles distant. Ned recalled each man to positions, archers on rim behind rock crevices, Dornish spears along narrow exit where slope allowed, Umber great axes poised to sever ramp ropes the moment trap sprung. Rhaegar inhaled frosted air tinged with resin from pines. It tasted of old hearths and childhood. Redfire stirred, hungry. Jon at his side stroked Bluewing's neck, murmuring half-joked prayer to gods old and new. Bran looked smaller than 10 years, though Cloud Dragon clung to him like living cloak. Yet his gray eyes glowed with something other, a calm beyond any child's right. "You should fly rear guard," Rhaegar told him, voice breaking quiet. "If we fall, you take dragons south." Bran shook his head. "When day comes, I will open Summer's gate." None knew what he meant, but Cloud's wings unfurled, silver light shimmering along bone. Horn blasts scattered fleeting comfort. 1 from Watchtree, 2 from Slope, 3 from farthest ridge. The enemy had come. White shadows poured between trees, silent save for crackle of ice-encased limbs snapping beneath their mass. Whites first, crashed armor and fur pelts stiff with hoarfrost, claw fingers stretched. Behind them towered giants of dead flesh, ribs rimed in blue steel, swinging tree trunks that left grooves in ground 6 feet deep. Farther back rode the others astride pale, elk-like creatures. Tall helms shaped like icicles, spears of crystal humming in still air. Ned loosed first arrow, dragonglass, black as night. It punched a hole through the dead light of a white's eye and snapped skullmate bone. Thousands followed, sky darkening with shafts. Many found marks, many shattered on frozen limbs. But whites climbed over fallen, relentless. Giants roared emptily and swung. Giants Bane, Arya, and their fast-footed hunters emerged from tree line opposite, torches high, shouting challenges that echoed like thunder. They darted into gorge mouth, then back, bait. The swarm pursued, ice cracked under collective weight, casks splintering as giants' clubs smashed exposed ridges. Slush rose oily black but did not ignite. Jon's stomach twisted as he saw torches sputter out in wind.
No spark.
Nearest giant reached low ridge where Ramp waited. Ned screamed order. Umber axes severed ropes. Ramp fell away. Hunters leapt. One slipped. Arya, cloak snagged. She dangled yards above Pitchpool until Giant's Bane caught her arm and flung her bodily onto snow, cursing fondly. Still no flame. Rhaegar spurred forward on foot. Redfire clamped to shoulder. He grasped the hatchling by torso, lifted its head toward Pool. "Breathe," he commanded. Redfire hissed, ember sparks dancing but no plume. A half-giant white hurled a javelin, shattered Ned's shield as he stepped between. Blood spritzed. Bluewing shrieked from Jon's grasp, wings thrashing. Without saddle, Jon could only cling as dragon launched into air. It swooped low, thrashed tail spines across icy flank of gorge. But Bluewing's flame, too new, was little more than smoke. Giants gained ramparts. One dead king pointed his spear. Ice tendrils shot up, gripping Bluewing's hind leg. Dragon tumbled. Jon flung aside, landing in drift where spear of bone sliced his calf. Pain seared. Above, Bran closed his eyes. Cloud stirred. The boy exhaled slow, as though matching some deeper rhythm. Wind stilled. Snowflakes hovered motionless. A hush blanketed battlefield. Bran raised his left hand, palm outward, fingers splayed. From far south, a golden light shimmered on horizon. At first, watchers thought sunrise had come early, but light grew, pulse brightening until sky blazed. Warm breath washed over valley. Snow melted in midair around Bran and Cloud. Steam haloed them. A voice, not Bran's, whispered through minds. A soft chime of spring buds bursting. And then a single beam of dawnlight, solid as glass, shot from boy's upturned palm, angled through Cloud's open jaws, refracted in throat crystalline. It emerged as searing white gold fire that plunged into pitch pool. The gorge ignited. Flame erupted in pillars 40 feet high, blue-white cores rimmed red, hotter than forge mortar. Shockwave shunted ranks of whites backward into each other. Giants staggered, fur blazing. Ice crowns of others cracked. Shrieks so high ears bled. Ramparts shook. Archers fell to knees. Rhaegar shielded Ned with his cloak, dragon at chest keening. Jon, half buried, felt sudden warmth clot his bleeding leg. He watched eyes of nearest dead giant frost shatter like glass. Fire spilled upward canyon walls, met wind, blossomed into plumes that painted clouds copper. For a moment the world was only roaring light, and in that light the Night King himself appeared. Tall, four-crowned with antlers of rime, cloak of starfrost trailing. He raised both arms, summoning froststorm that clashed soundlessly with flame. Snow swirling blackened to cinders. Ice shards hissed to steam. Rhaegar stumbled through sundered smoke to meet him, dawn in hand, ruby blazing. Red fire sprang skyward, wings alight. The Night King's blade, longer than any man's greatsword, forged from unmelting crystal, met dawn with a peal like mountains splitting. Sparks of light and frost showered. The Night King drove Rhaegar to knee, every blow freezing steel. Dawn's edge whitened with ice spiderweb cracks. Jon limped forward, blue wing hovering ragged in air. Bran guided Cloud to Rhaegar's far flank. Ned interposed between Jon and a trio of wights, his great sword ice sweeping arcs reminiscent of Harvest Scythe. Heads rolled black blood onto snow. Arya raced past, rapier of dragonglass punching chests. Dawn groaned. Rhaegar's wrists trembled. The Night King hissed frost breath that crackled Rhaegar's cheek to blue. Without thought the king thrust ruby-clad gorget to mouth of red fire swooping low. The hatchling bit the stone. Ruby shattered, shards swallowing the king's blood, aspirating sparks. Red fire spat them full at Night King's face. For the first time ancient ice recoiled. Frost crown melted to slush. A scream deeper than cavern rumbled heaven. Ned seized moment, hurled ice two-handed. Valyrian steel bit shoulder joint, stuck. Night King staggered. Jon clutched Bluewing's neck, whispered, "Flare." The dragon coughed bright cobalt flame that wrapped both rider and foe alike. Crystal sword shimmered, cracked. But Night King did not fall. Instead, with last strength, he thrust broken sword into frozen earth. Shockwaves spidered out, ripping gorge rim, toppling charred giants into smoldering pitch. Flames roared higher, but path to wall fissured, ground shaking. Bran slid from clouds back onto rubble, hands pressed to ice. His eyes rolled white. From distant mountains a howl answered, not wolf, not man. The light he had channeled earlier refracted again, this time blossoming across entire gorge floor in lattice of gold threads. Where light met ice, fissures stitched closed. Where it met flame, it fed hotter yet guided upward in narrow columns, sparing allies. Bran's body convulsed, but Cloud wrapped wings sheltering him. Night King shrieked anew, crown now molten iron dripping through skull bone. Rhaegar rose, dawn lifting with him, cracks sealing themselves under combined heat of Redfire's presence and Bran's lattice. He spoke one word, Valyrian, meaning unbind. Blade flashed. He cleaved Night King from collar to crotch. Silence followed aftershock roll. The body did not fall. It dissolved, swirling into snowflakes that drifted upward and vanished, leaving only broken antler crown hissing, then silencing. Whites collapsed across gorge. Giants crumbled to bone dust. Crystal spears melted to slush that steam hissed then froze again. Survivors stood stunned, breath ragged in newly quiet air. Snow no longer fell. Overhead, clouds parted as though a curtain drawn. First true dawn in weeks spilled rosy light across scorched canyon, touching horizon line with gold. Jon slid to knees, tears steaming on cheeks. Ned rested heavy hand on his shoulder. Arya sank cross-legged near Bran, who lay still but breathing, eyes brown again. Rhaegar wiped gore from brow. The ruby gone, yet a faint ember glowed above his heart where scales of breastplate fused. Red fire settled on wrist, cooing, wings fragile but luminous. Bluewing landed beside, bumping snout to hatchmate. Cloud flapped down, curling about Bran protectively. From ridge, Giant's Bane shouted hoarse victory cry echoed by 1,000 throats. Even Stannis, stoic, let sword tip rest and exhaled long, almost a laugh. Ned turned to Rhaegar. Is it ended? Rhaegar looked to Dragon, then to growing light. The long night has broken, he said. Winter remains, but dawn is ours. Word traveled south on fastest gulls and swiftest tongues. Night King fallen, wall stands, dragons reborn. In King's Landing bells rang, not tolling lament but jubilation, and Lyanna collapsed laughing, child in arms, tears shining. Tywin Lannister, reading Raven's scroll in lone study, smiled thinly, relief mixed with calculation. Across narrow sea, Viserys shattered goblet in rage, Illyrio quietly adjusting plans. Yet, in that moment politics mattered less than sunrise. North of Gorge, Black brothers built cairns for dead, wildling and ranger alike. Dornish spears planted banners at canyon edge but left them there as grave markers rather than trophies. The milk-white blade Dawn, its purpose spent, was laid beside Maester Aemon's resting pyre ashes, returned to quietude. Rhaegar, Jon, Arya, Bran and dragons climbed a ridge from which one could see the distant sparkle of shivering sea. They stood shoulder to shoulder, silent. Frost glittered across armor like a second field of stars. "Songs will come of this," Jon murmured. "Let them," Rhaegar replied, voice soft. "But may they also sing of the living who chose to stand." Bran's hand found Arya's. "Summer will follow," he said. "Not a child's hope, but prophecy accepted. Maybe not soon, but it will." Below, Ned oversaw wagons loaded with wounded southward. He caught Rhaegar's distant gaze, raised gloved fist, and the king returned salute. Wolf and dragon had kept oath. Shield the realm with crown and sword, with heart and song. Beyond horizon lay rebuilding. Roads, fields, hearts. Dragons would grow, politics return, lords squabble. But dawn had broken. And wherever sun touched thawing snow, the echo of 3 small dragons' first roar traveled, promising that even on a continent forged by betrayal and broken oaths, hope could hatch from stone so long as bastards and princes, wildlings and ladies, old wolves and new, chose, again and again, to stand together. Fresh snow still hissed where it touched the scorched basin of Icehead Gorge. Dawn's pale gold lengthened across debris until even charred timbers took on a fleeting shimmer. Yet the valley smelled of blood and sweat and the curious mineral tang left when ice meets true flame. By mid-morning, the hush of victory had thinned. Hammers rang again, this time not to build engines of war, but to raise cairns of riverstone. Men pressed coins or river pebbles into fallen comrades' mouths. Copper for Northmen, smooth jade chips from Dorne, lion-stamped half-dragons for Westerlanders whose families would never know exactly where they lay. Rhaegar worked shoulder to shoulder beside Jon Snow and Tormund Giantsbane, stacking boulders around a burial pit dug where frost still smoked. Red fire clung sleepily beneath his cloak, occasionally poking a whiskered snout into cold air to chirp. The novelty of dragons had begun yielding to the harder ink of chronicles. Scribes and frayed will hurried from pyre to pyre, recording each name before scavenger birds erased faces. Bran watched from a ridge, cloud curled around his throat like a living scarf. The boy's eyes looked years older than before the battle. Something of that white gold radiance lingered in his pupils, an after-image of power glimpsed and not quite shut away. Arya accepted his silence as she might accept a broken finger bone. Painful but proof of use. She still carried the dragonglass rapier, now nicked in 3 places. Each nick she'd earned, each she refused to polish out. Ned Stark oversaw the wounded encampment. Stretchers lined trestles. Reach herbalists brewed willow bark. Dornish leeches slithered in stoppered horns. He wore no helm, wishing every man could see the hand's face, but he was bone-tired. When Clydas the steward offered watered wine, he drank without protest. Ice rested across his knees, edge wrapped in oiled cloth. He had scrubbed the blade thrice, yet black specks of frozen ichor hid in each ripple, glimmering like stars behind thin cloud. Near dusk, a lone horn sounded from the eastward watchtree. All heads lifted. Cold wind pushed stray embers into the half-dark. A mounted rider approached along the now muddy game trail, cloak snapped by gale, standard limp with wet. No one reached for weapons. Every sword arm ached. But the camp bristled, habit too strong. The silhouette reined in atop a frost-slick ridge and raised one hand in greeting before dismounting. Giantsbane rumbled, "Southron build," That one. The rider descended on foot. Moonlight revealed a woman's face, lined but stately. Lady Meege Mormont of Bear Island. Behind her, a dozen island spears appeared, each bearing bundles of salted cod and thick bear furs. A gift to warm the Southrons who came north, she called, voice as gravelly as gravel itself. Cheers answered. Meege strode past barricades and halted before Ned. She touched fist to chest. Word reached Bear Island of wolves and dragons holding back dead things. Couldn't have the stories claiming Mormonts hid by hearth. She waved spears to distribute supplies. I have tidings from White Harbor too. Lord Wyman sends a small fleet with grain. Says the Myrish wine is already loaded if the seas unfreeze. Her mouth quirked, and he begs the king to spare one dragon for his granddaughter's name day. The child fancies herself a silver-haired queen. Rhaegar smiled, though exhaustion etches even royalty. Tell Lord Wyman I promise her a hatchling carved of amber, not bone. Lady Meage's gaze rested on Redfire a moment, then drifted to Bran's cloud and Jon's bluewing. Growing fast. Ascabizdu. Faster, Jon replied. Bluewing already reached from elbow to wrist, heavier by the hour. When he tried tethering the dragon earlier, the cords seared through a leather gauntlet. They'll need larger quarters than saddlebags come fortnight. Let's pray the realm survives their appetite, Meege said, but her grin was proud. 3 days' labor put the wall's crews on stable footing. Fresh timbers from Bear Island replaced shattered palisades. Obsidian shards lined new arrow slits. Torches burned day and night, fueled by Tyrell pitch oil. Stannis Baratheon resumed command of Eastwatch Harbor, though harbors remained slabs of black glass until spring. He inspected each supply manifest with dire persistence, but those who looked closely saw strain ease in the set of his shoulders. No ships of shadow threatened his command, and that seemed victory enough. Jon oversaw Dragon Roost construction. 2 log-stack roundhouses packed with straw and fresh-killed goats behind palisade posts. Bluewing resisted confinement at first, retching smoke, but Jon crouched beside the hatchling till talons relaxed. Bran's cloud accepted the den placidly, curling in straw to warm Bran's feet as he told stories. Half memory, half greenseer dream, about summer snow and children of the forest who danced under lights. Redfire, ever restless, perched atop the ridgepole rather than within, wings fanning snow from shingles. Rhaegar visited each roost daily, consulting sketches dashed by maesters with trembling ink. How rapid would dragons grow in northern chill? What ratio of meat to flame rock? Could sapphire-scaled bluewing live near seawater fog? The king absorbed every speculation, his own answers always couched in we shall see. He carried a lute some nights and sang soft chords until dragons' eyelids drooped. More than one tired sentry drifted to sleep leaning on spear, lulled by royal lullabies. A raven arrived on the 8th morning. King's Landing wax, dark green, stamped now with intertwined dragon and wolf. Lyanna's script spilled across both sides. Tales of their daughter's first tooth, of Tyrell wagons reaching the neck, of Tywin Lannister hosting winter feasts for orphans in the capital. Gesture cynics called angling for sainthood, but which filled bellies nonetheless. She wrote that Elia Snow giggled when shown a painted shield of a lion and a dragon locked in a dance. May our children dance, not quarrel, Lyanna scripted. A postscript added that Balon Greyjoy had sent a silver-inked missive professing loyalty, so long as the Iron Islands kept the realm's fastest ships free from levy. He smells weakness, she warned, and weakness smells of salt. Rhaegar read lines beneath flickering torch and sighed. He folded letter, tucked it to heart beneath gorget. Ned stood nearby, finishing an inventory of dragonglass spear points. Without looking away, he said, Tywin feeds the poor, Balon offers loyalty. Peace changes many colors. Peace or the illusion of it. Rhaegar's eyes traced the wall's moonlit crest. New auroras rippled, but softer now, white instead of bruise blue. When the true winter threat wanes, old grudges return like wolves.
Ned set hvileside.
Then we shape law before fangs emerge. He unrolled another parchment, the Charter of Realm reforged drafted months earlier. Curbs on wildfire, limits on hostage-taking, revenue sharing for winter relief. Much bore Tywin's neat marginalia, scribbles of cost and consequence. Enacting this charter will matter more than winning any field. Rhaegar touched the ruby wound still healing, now sheathed behind thin gold disc. We could parade dragons through King's Landing and still some lords would call it trickery. But pen strokes, they last longer than fear. Ned's jaw angled. They last only if men of sword keep them honest. Rhaegar's smile was tired but warm. Then dragon and wolf guard both pen and sword. 10 days after the Night King's fall, ravens bearing pale parchment reached every campfire between Arbor and Last Hearth. Summons to a second great council, this time in Riverrun come spring thaw. Rhaegar's decree promised seats for free folk chieftains, maesters, even a high-born woman from each kingdom. Never before had female voices been invited beyond queens themselves. Sweet Robin Arryn's mother Lisa blanched, yet sent messenger. Prince Doran of Dorne agreed by courier ship, though gout pinned him to Sunspear. Tywin's reply, as expected, used 60 craft-polished words to say we will attend to ensure dragons stay civil. But between summons and spring lay miles of hunger. Winter storms battered the gift, burying roads under ridges that looked like frozen waves. The dragons hunted on small wings, hares, thin fox pups, and always returned with more meat than they could eat. They seemed to sense shared need. One dusk blue wing dragged a half-grown elk calf across courtyard, collapsing in a heap of steam while boys from Mole's Town butchered the carcass for the mess. Redfire preferred charred goat but once dropped 3 snow grouse alive at Samwell Tarly's feet, startling the maester apprentice half to death. Cloud, curiously, hunted little, choosing instead to perch atop the wall's parapet and stare northward for hours, nostrils flaring. Bran sometimes joined in that strange vigil. On the dark of the moon, he told Jon he dreamed of glass lakes beneath fir trees, and singers made of moss who whispered about Brock, and pathways yet unsealed. Jon listened, uneasy. The others were gone, but not all of their magics. In late frost moon, the royal column set south from Castle Black. Snow packed hard under hoof. Sled runners sang. Dragons wheeled overhead, arcs of color against pewter sky. Stannis remained as warden of the wall with 2,000 garrison troops, sworn to signal at first sign of renewed movement beyond. Val stayed likewise, commanding a joint Free Folk Knights watch patrol who marveled at the chance to stand sentinel instead of target. Goodbyes were brief. War and winter taught that farewells linger only when men doubt reunion, and none dared doubt after what they'd faced. They reached Winterfell in 14 days, hindered by sleet storms and a single partial avalanche that forced the train to carve new path along a frozen creek bed. Lady Catelyn rode out with the household guard. Robb tall in wolf hide, Sansa bundled but bright-eyed. Bran's younger brothers perched on ponies none too pleased with dragon scent. Shouts rose as Blue Wing glided low, horses bolted. Sansa laughed until gust of wing knocked Hood aside and her auburn hair tangled with flakes. Ned dismounted to gather his children in one enormous embrace. Then Catelyn kissed him, right there before northern lords, until snow melted on his pauldrons. Inside the great hall, hearths roared. The smell of leek stew and boar crackling mingled with the iron tang of old shields polished for the feast. Rhaegar bowed to Lady Stark as to a queen, presenting her with a single winter rose carved from crystal. Fragile, clear as newborn ice. She blinked tears and murmured the flower might shatter in warmth. "Then let the north keep it cold," Rhaegar answered. At supper, Mace Tyrell's grain wains arrived to accompaniment of harper's strings. Gold cloaks escorted them as far as the neck, then Barrowton banners took charge. The sight of such southern bounty in winter spurred older folk to whisper about new prosperity under dragon rule, though cynics muttered Tyrell gold bought goodwill more than dragon vision. Either way, trenches behind the walls filled with root cellar stock before the moon's next wane. Rhaegar remained 3 weeks, long enough to witness the wedding of Willis Tyrell, sent north by his father, and Lady Lyanna's cousin Lyanna Stark, forging yet another knot in a growing web of compromise. The feast lasted 3 days. Barrels of Arbor gold wine flowed. Blue Wing snapped a candelabra and nearly set tablecloths ablaze before Jon hauled the dragon outside. The incident drew only laughter. Victory gave merriment easy birth. But on the third night, Bran's face went slack among rush-strewn benches. Arya, quick to note, guided him to a bench near Wolf's Den hearth. Bran's eyes glazed milk-white again. His mouth formed words no sound carried until Arya pressed ear to his lips. White shadows on black waves, the sound of cracking ice where no ice lies. She tried to rouse him. Bran blinked and returned, claiming only that he felt chilled. Arya fetched Maester Luwin, who dosed hot milk with dream wine. Bran slept 14 hours. Cloud refused to leave his side, wings mantling the boy's chest like duvet. Ned heard of the spell and told Rhaegar privately. The king listened, face grave. Greenseer's sight may glimpse threat south of Wall, he mused. If night's cold spreads beneath warm seas, he resolved to hasten south sooner than planned. They would winter the rest of season at King's Landing, marshal lords, codify charters, and prepare fleets. If Cold Shadow truly sailed, the realm must answer on water as on land. The column resumed travel toward White Harbor early in the month, the small folk called Melt Summer Promise, though rivers remained sheathed. Rhaegar left a garrison sliver at Winterfell. 200 dragon soldiers, 1 maester, a smith versed in dragonglass forging. Robb Stark accepted command proudly, though Cat insisted he keep mind on studies with Maester Luwin even as his sword arm grew surer. Crossing the neck proved treacherous. Thaw had begun. Salt-stink pools opened beneath crusted snow, swallowing carts. Reed barges from Greywater watch ferried dragons and baggage across shallows where mosquitoes already hatched in clouds. Howland Reed guided the king through causeways known only to Crannogmen. He spoke softly of children of the forest returning to groves abandoned for centuries. Rhaegar listened, asked whether those children might speak with Bran. Reed answered, "They will speak when trees decide." At White Harbor, Lord Wyman, half his girth gone after rationed winter, hosted a banquet aboard his flagship Fat Merman, hull ice-scoured but afloat. He gifted several barrels of pickled herring called sea dragon eggs and joked they were easier to rear than the fire-breathing sort. Bluewing attempted to test the claim by devouring 1 cask whole. Wyman took it as omen of plenty and ordered a second cask poured over deck for small folk to gather. Rhaegar spent 2 days reviewing the modest royal fleet stationed under Stannis's earlier orders. Hulls needed tar, sails patching. Yet captains boasted that, with river ice breaking, they could escort grain up Blackwater within weeks. The king appointed Ser Davos Seaworth Admiral of Dawn, a title Davos accepted with awkward bow, reminding that he was no knight of fancy name. "That is why the realm trusts you," Rhaegar said, clapping shoulder. Davos wept quietly later, kneeling in the ship's dim hold where onion sacks once hid contraband. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Tywin Lannister's careful generosity reached apex. He opened storehouses behind the guild hall of the alchemists to distribute mold-free bread. The poor cheered. The faith lauded lion charity in sermons. The High Septon, robed in gold heavier than his shoulders, declared House Lannister an instrument of the Seven's mercy. Varys duly relayed these tidings north along with a coded aside. Charity often builds altars for ambition to kneel upon. Lyanna accepted the lion's new face while remaining wary. She oversaw the red keep with Elia Snow on hip, Rhaenys tagging behind, playing queen with a paper crown Arya had once folded. She chaired council sessions, hearing petitions ranging from collapsed tenements to disputes over freeze-cracked aqueducts. Her judgments proved brisk, fair, sometimes stern. No man leaving her solar doubted the Wolf Queen's teeth. Cersei Lannister visited often, presenting gowns of red silk for the child princess, though Lyanna noticed stitches shaped like lion claws curling round hems. In private, Cersei lamented Jaime's oath to the Night's Watch, calling it exile. Lyanna suggested the realm's safety outweighed personal longing. The two women danced verbal foils, each aware of knife edges but respecting formality, for the moment. When Rhaegar's Raven announced imminent return, Tywin proposed a grand tourney to celebrate victory and present dragons to city. The High Septon seconded. Cersei announced her son Joffrey would award the wreath to champion. Lyanna, reading letter, debated until Maester Qyburn warned that starving population might riot without a spectacle to wrap hope upon. So Lyanna agreed, on condition proceeds fund orphanages in every gate district. Tywin smiled thin as paper, but acquiesced. It was early snowmelt when the royal procession crested Riders' Hill overlooking the Blackwater. 3 dragons circled the column. Larger now, wingspans of small eagles, bellies distended from river trout gorged earlier. City banners rippled. Crowds lined the roads despite chill drizzle. Rhaegar rode Twilight, a gray courser he'd owned since the Trident. Ned rode beside on a rugged northern gelding. Each bore double pennants. Red 3-headed dragon entwined by white snarling direwolf. Bluewing landed atop the Great September's copper dome, causing gongs to clang discordant until acolytes herded the beast down with sides of mutton. Inside the Red Keep's throne room, torches burned scented oils. Tywin waited at foot of steps, Cersei behind him, flanked by Prince Joffrey in black and gold. Lyanna stood opposite, Elia Snow in arms and Rhaenys holding her gown. Joffrey's eyes widened seeing dragons, alive, unchained, while Cersei's narrowed, counting wings. Tywin bowed. "Welcome home, your grace. The city awaits your tale." Rhaegar embraced Lyanna first, whispering, "All well." She nodded, murmuring of smooth governance and sly lions. He smiled, though fatigue bowed shoulders. The king addressed gathering. He spoke of horror in the haunted forest, courage of free folk, fall of Night King. He named those lost, Maester Aemon, Arthur Dayne, unnamed rangers. He ended with Charter Scroll, passing to High Septon for witness ratification. Tywin stepped forward. "The crown begs clarity on 2 points. Trade remission to fund winter relief, and the dragon tide. How shall hatching be governed?" Rhaegar anticipated weaving of gold and fear. He announced that the charter created an office of the balance, seats for each kingdom to monitor taxes. As for dragons, he decreed no egg might be hatched without approval of council and faith, and that each hatchling pledged to guard realm, not house. Tywin pressed lips. He had hoped for lion riders. Religious lords breathed easier. Fear of new tyrant calmed. That night, behind closed doors, Rhaegar met Tywin privately. Fire burned low. Red fire perched on mantle like sentinel. Tywin offered vintage from the Westerlands, insisting the king taste first. Rhaegar obliged, setting goblet aside after sip. Tywin launched into measured critique. Half the realm still feared northern overreach. House Greyjoy needed watching. Pentos and Bravos sniffing at trade concessions. Rhaegar heard him, then asked blunt, "What is it you truly seek, Tywin? Aegon to wed Myrcella? A dragon egg for the rock?" Tywin's nostrils flared. "I seek a future where my grandchildren kneel to no tyrant. Dragons belong to Targaryen blood, but blood can mix. So can greed," Rhaegar answered softly. He promised alliance bonds yet to hatch, but first the realm must breathe. Tywin inclined head, mask of courtesy sliding back into place. They parted at dawn, neither wholly content nor wholly opposed, a balance precarious. The tourney opened on Maiden's Day, preceded by holy rites where High Septon blessed dragons with fragrant smoke, though the creatures coughed and nearly scorched his beard. Lists stretched outside the Dragon Pit ruins. Knights of Vale, River, Storm, and Reach glittered. Jon Snow, named honorary prince by courtesy yet refusing the title, rode in stark gray, helm forged of beaten iron, not silver. He carried a blunted spear and allowed Bluewing to swoop overhead mid-tilt for spectacle. The crowd loved him. Bookies shortened odds. Opposite him rode Ser Loras Tyrell in blooming gold and green. Loras bowed to Jon, praising northern courage. They traded friendly jibes about sheep's wool versus silk. First tilt ended when Bluewing shrieked. Jon's spear wobbled, glancing off Loras's shield, but Loras kept seat. Second pass, Jon struck center chest. Splinters ricochet into stands. Loras slipped but recovered. Third pass, their lances shattered simultaneously. Judges called draw. Spectators thundered approval, north and south in equal measure. A lesser-known hedge knight landed the final laurels. Ser Galladon Rivers, bastard of Maidenpool, who unhorsed 3 gold cloaks, then Clegane cousin. Joffrey placed wreath. Ser Galladon kneeled before Lyanna instead, dedicating victory to the queen who dared winter. Cersei's smile froze brittle. Amid feasts, ravens of darker wingtip arrived. Scouts sighted sails west of Banefort, no banners flown. Balon Greyjoy claimed merely fishing fleets. Reports suggested hulls heavier, lined for war. Rhaegar summoned council. Tywin advised swift punitive strike. Ironborn respect only fire. Ned urged caution. Winter seas treacherous, men weary. Rhaegar weighed. He knew Balon coveted coastline, yet open war risked fracturing fragile union. He dispatched Ser Davos with 4 galleys, orders to parley. Either Greyjoy contributed ships to guard realm or face Dragon's flame. Weeks later, Davos returned with Balon's envoy. His daughter, Asha Greyjoy, eyes bright as broken glass. She bore a chest of black pearls and letter pledging 30 longships, provided no dragons fly above Pike. For ironborn gods burn not but drowned. Rhaegar accepted contingent on ironborn raiders ceasing all salt wife-taking. Asha shrugged. "My father won't like," she said, but clasped wrists with Queen Lyanna. Spring finally cracked the crownlands. Almond blossoms trembled in red keep courtyards. Snowmelt swelled the Blackwater, floating barge traffic toward the Reach. Dragons grew to hound size, wingspans long as wagon covers. Keep armorers fashioned scale-padded gloves for their riders. Bran resumed his greenseer lessons in Godswood, where weirwood saplings planted by Dorne septons took root. Southerners marveling at white leaves within stone walls. Arya sparred daily with Sandor Clegane, the hound grumbling she swung like cat. She grinned and felled him twice with dragonglass dagger, but peace frayed at a different seam. A cry of plague along stepstones, a fever burning like sun yet leaving frostbite scars. Varys's little birds chirped of Lysine pirates alleging disease brought by undead fog. The Citadel wrote formulas, but panic flourished faster than cures. Tyrell fleets diverted to quarantine-less harbors. Dornish traders halted. Rhaegar convened healers. Samwell presented notes on wildling remedies using milk of mare and powdered frost mushroom. Lyanna authorized experiments in the city's poorer wards, where cough already spread. Amid worry, Bran collapsed once more. This time he convulsed on stone floor of Tower of the Hand. Clouds screamed overhead. Dragons answered. Even Redfire tore tapestry from wall with Talon. Rhaegar sprinted. Ned nearly broke down doors. Bran's voice came unnatural. Salt on snow, blood in foam. The sword that sang now silent in deep. Then he stilled. Maester Luwin dosed dream wine heavier. Bran slept. When he woke, he pressed trembling fingers on Rhaegar's arm. "The sea will freeze," he said. "Icebeard stirs where land breaks in 3. He did not know what it meant. Jon studied maps. Salt on snow might be Sea Dragon Point. Blood in foam near Skagos? Sword silent in deep. Dawn lost? He and Rhaegar pored over sailors' charts. Maester Qyburn suggested uncharted reefs west of Bear Island. Gendry hammered a steel needle into new compass. Cloud perched unmoving for hours, staring west. The decision formed. Send an expedition beyond sunset sea west of Westeros. An audacity known only in old maids' tales. If new threat lurked there, better to face it before it reached shoreline with death fog. Ned volunteered, but Lyanna forbade. "One Stark must keep throne warm," she told him. Jon offered. Rhaegar considered and agreed. Blood of dragon, yet wolf bold enough to sail darkness. Asha Greyjoy demanded inclusion. No one sails wastes like Ironborn. Davos too. Mace Tyrell promised wheat-crammed hulls. Varys supplied rumor of Pentoshi cartographers exiled for heresy. They would guide. Departure set for midsummer from Old Town, where Hightower's beacons still burned tangent to horizon though war and winter dimmed it. Dragons would sail too, tethered on maintop spars, wings free for reconnaissance. Bran insisted he accompany, claiming visions bound him. Sam worried for boy's health but could not dissuade. Preparations filled weeks. Tywin saw opportunity. While key players sailed west, continent governance would lean Lion's way. He proposed Cersei as regent. Rhaegar countered with Council of Five: Lyanna, Mace Tyrell, Oberyn's daughter Nymeria, Garland Tyrell's wife Lyanette, and Maester Qyburn for neutral mind. Tywin accepted outwardly. Inside gears turned. He sent cousin Davin to Highgarden with letters sealed in crimson wax. Cersei plotted differently. Joffrey's 10th name day approached. She requested Bluewing entertain. Jon refused politely. Dragon not pet. Cersei seethed. She met with Pycelle, inquired about Wildfire's dragon-killing efficacy. Pycelle gulped but fetched yellowed treatises. Varys heard, whispered warning to Lyanna. Lyanna confronted Cersei on Maidenvault balcony, infant daughter asleep on hip. "My dragon guards my child," she said. "Yours should guard your heart." Cersei laughed brittle. "Your wolf heart may bite, but lions feast." Lyanna's eyes flashed gray steel. Wolves hunt in packs. Dragons burn entire prides. Words hung icily. Joffrey, overhearing, vowed to slay a dragon when grown. Rhaenys, watching, told him stories of heroes eaten by beasts they boasted to kill. In Old Town, the tall wharf smelled of tar and orange peel. Gulls cawed over half-rigged mastheads. The fleet assembled. 7 stout carracks, 2 iron-borne longships refitted with reinforced prows. The flagship Dawnstar bearing Rhaegar's sigil shading into stark gray. Archmaester Ambrose insisted on sending plague healers. Archmaester Marwyn boarded unasked, claiming world's edges call the world's mariners. Rhaegar placed Jon as admiral, Davos as first mate. Asha commanded the sea bitch with curt grin. Bran quartered in the king's cabin, Cloud nesting among bedposts. Sam served as scholar, copying tide charts night after night. Arya stowed away disguised as deck boy, but Sandor Clegane discovered her by day 3, dragging her before Jon. Jon could not turn sister back through pirate waters. She became ship's runner, proud. Dragons roost on yardarms, scales reflecting star drifts when nights calmed. The fleet slipped past Old Town Beacon one moonless midnight. Onshore watchers said the dragon's silhouettes looked like ravens at first, then phoenix plumes against lighthouse flame. Light faded, canvas bellied, westerly swells greeted keels, and so they sailed into story no chart would own. Back in King's Landing, Tywin began quietly shifting coin. Lannister men drilled knights by torch behind city stables. Cersei whispered to lordlings starstruck by royal power absence. But Lyanna, too, planned. She rode to Storm's End, forging deeper alliance with Stannis. To Sunspear, where Oberyn's spears drilled now with dragonglass. Even to the Vale, coaxing Lisa Arryn down from airy perch. Each journey wove new threads through the tapestry Tywin hoped to cut. Winter at last retreated from south. Crocus pushed through snow-rotten leaves. Peasants sowed barley along Blackwater banks. Children chased Bluewing's shadow when Jon's raven reported safe sail halfway across Summer Sea. Red Keep gossips said the world felt bigger since dragons returned, as if more map remained to ink. In the crypt beneath Great September, High Septon prayed over relics of fallen others, crystals cooled to stone. He feared their silent songs still twined with mortal hearts. He wrote warnings to citadels urging vigilance. But across the realm, laughter outpaced dread for the first time in a generation. And in quiet moments, Rhaegar's letters to Lyanna spoke not of crowns or wars but of dawn on open sea, of Bran's prophetic laughter when clouds skimmed wavetops, of Jon's resolve steeled by salt spray, of hope's resilience. Lyanna replied with tales of Elia Snow's first steps, of Rhaenys' harp practice, of Bluewing leaving charred Talon prints along courtyard flagstones. Reminders that life persisted, fragile yet fierce. One night far west, beneath a smear of ghost-green aurora unseen by any maester, Bran stood at Dawnstar's prow, eyes white. Cloud hissed low. Jon steadied the boy. Bran whispered a name none had heard. Nissa Nissa. Rhaegar, roused from bunk, asked what it meant. Bran said only, "Beyond this sea lies shadow deeper than winter, but fire walks beside us know." Voo! Lightning forked on horizon. Thunder turned waves to black mountains. Dragons screeched into rising gale. Crew hauled lines, Asha cursing in 6 tongues. The fleet plunged onward. Jon tied himself to mast, scanning for reefs. In the storm's heart a pale light glimmered, neither moon nor star. Perhaps city of glass, perhaps only lightning caught on cloud. But Rhaegar saw it and thought of prophecy meeting edge of world. He gripped Redfire, felt heart hammer against dragons' beating wings, and smiled. Not in triumph but in wonder, because stories, he now understood, did not end with dawn. They stretched beyond horizons, stitched by every breath of those willing to face shadow. As long as dragons soared, as long as wolves howled, as long as common lads raised spears and queens raised children, the song continued. Sometimes fierce, sometimes frail, but always burning bright enough to kindle hope in even the coldest dark. And far across Westeros, the folk of villages and valleys looked east at sunrise or west at sunset and whispered that maybe, just maybe, the age of fear had slipped behind them like the dying tale of winter's storm. Maybe the realm, guided by dragon's fire and wolf's honor, could finally build a peace neither gold nor steel alone could forge. For dawn had broken, and under its early light every soul, great or small, learned anew what it meant to stand.